Good morning. This meeting of the Fremont County Board of County Commissioners is called to order. With us today is Joe Garkovich from Mercy Today Ministries, I believe. Yeah. There you are, hiding back there, for our invocation to be followed immediately by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for this day, another day in which to serve you. As this group gathers this morning to make these important decisions, we pray that you would bless them with courage and compassion and wisdom to make the best decisions for all the residents of Fremont County. We would also like to lift up all of our county employees this day and ask you to watch over them and guide them in all that they say and in all that they do. And all these prayers we send to you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Roll call.
Commissioner Grantham.
Here.
Commissioner McFall.
Present.
Commissioner Bell.
Present.
County Attorney Jackson.
Present.
County Manager Carochi.
Present.
Planning and Zoning Director Victoria.
Present.
Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I am unaware again of any changes we need to make to today's agenda, so I move to approve as presented.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for today. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I just want to note on the consent agenda that we are scheduling a public hearing for November 14th, and that is for the proposed 2024 Fremont County budget. So if anybody has any questions about that, they're welcome to come to that public hearing and talk about it. And with that, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second with the note that that public hearing will begin at 10 a.m.
Thank you for that. And just a note for those that may have read the newspaper this morning and the article by Carrie Canterbury, she had put in November 28th because that's what I told her yesterday. But it is, in fact, November 14th. So spread the word to the thousands and millions that want to be here for the budget public hearing. It will be November 14th. And again, not Carrie's fault, my fault. So November 14th. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We now move on to our administrative and informational portion of our meeting. First, we have an update from staff and elected officials. First, we have with us our Budget and Finance Officer, Sean Sutton, for a sales and use tax report.
Good morning, Sean.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. How is everybody?
Great.
Very good.
Good.
Great.
Shall I wait or shall I continue?
Continue.
Perfect.
Please.
So thanks for your time. Yeah, I'll be going over the monthly report for both August and September 2023. So we'll start with the retail sales tax collection. Again, for everybody out there, this is split 45% for general fund, 15% for sales and use tax, and then the remaining 40% goes to the sheriff's department. So for August, total was $868,079. This is $50,763 more than 2022. Year to date, we're at $6,344,378, which is $461,628 more than 2022. And year to date, we are ahead of budget by $1,077,711. The auto use sales tax collection, this is through September, for September, totaled $227,497. This is $95,724 more than 2022. This large number reflects a one-time transfer. I believe Clerk Grantham talked about this maybe a little bit. So this is a one-time experience, but has hit our bottom line. So not something that we're expecting in 2024 and moving forward. But with that said, total for 2023 is currently at $1,238,016. And we are ahead of 2022 by $129,058. And for the year, I had $356,766. Lodging report for August totaled $1,015, which is $404 more than 2022. We are currently at $165,818, which is $29,703 more than 2022. We do have 2 large collection months coming up in September, quarterlies, and December. So as the lodging board likes to say, lots of beds and heads this year, and we'll look to wrap up the year and see what those numbers final at. Sheriff retail sales tax collection for August totaled $578,719. This is $33,842 more than 2022. Current totals are $4,229,578. This is $307,743 more than 2022. And again, ahead of budget by $429,578. Sheriff auto use sales tax collection for September totaled $151,665. This is $63,816 more than 2022. Year-to-date, we're at $825,345. This is $61,642 more than 2022. And year-to-date, we are ahead of budget by $225,345. So, as we projected, summer months have been good. We've caught up and obviously exceeded budgets. In addition to that, inflationary factors continue to lead to retail sales collections that we haven't experienced in the past. These obviously affect our residents and our staff here at Fremont County. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Sutton?
I have no questions, just thank you. It's a
Yeah,
lot of
thanks, Sean.
numbers to keep track of. And I appreciate your comments as well and explaining why we have some anomalies happening right now. So thanks for that, Sean.
You bet.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay. Move on to our county manager report. Mr. Carochi.
Good morning.
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 So just a few things. We will be holding our bid document opening for the Fremont County Sheriff's Department chiller project today at 1:00 p.m. in the lower level conference room. Tomorrow, October the 25th, the Department of Human Services will be closed for their quarterly staff development, professional development day. They will reopen on Thursday, October the 26th at 7:30 a.m. Fremont County has the following job opportunities posted. We have openings in the Fremont County Sheriff's Department for detention deputies. We have the following openings in our Department of Human Services, accounting technician, an expedited permanency caseworker, ongoing caseworker, elementary school age ongoing caseworker, a resource family specialist, and an economic security technician. And that's all I have this morning.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Any
Tony.
questions?
Nope, thank you.
Okay. Next is our elected officials. Any updates? Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For those of you who don't know and didn't receive your ballot, please go to my election office or contact them at govotecolorado.gov so you can get your ballot. Drop boxes were opened on Monday this week, and all those video surveillance was started. So be assured you can turn in your ballots there. You can turn them in the drop box inside the clerk's office, or the voting center will open starting next week on Monday through Election Day, except for Sunday. All the information of times and locations are inside your ballot instructions, inside the envelope that was sent to you, or online at our website. So just know that. And then one thing that I've been seeing pop up about the election this time around is the city council election for Canyon City versus the city council election for Florence. Note that your ballots are correct if the city of Canyon City votes at large with their city council members, but candidates who run inside the district have to live in the district. That is different from the city of Florence, where you live and vote inside your ward. So know that there is a difference between the two, and yes, the ballots went out correctly, and you can vote those, and they will count. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And remember to get out and vote. Any updates or comments from my colleagues?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Okay,
I got a couple quick things, Mr. Chair.
sure.
One, if you've driven by Pathfinder Park, you've noticed a sign out front, and it's not lit up yet, but that sign is paid for in part by the Rotary of Canyon City, and I think Florence is going to help too. It's kind of interesting. I was looking up signs to try to purchase one for the out there, and about the same time I got a phone call from Rotary, and they wanted to be part of it, so they're using their ducky money to help us pay for that sign. As soon as we get electricity, we'll have it lit up. It's going to be pretty cool, so we can see what's happening out there. And then, most importantly, it's really dry out there. The winds are starting to blow this fall. Be very careful out there. The fire danger is high. We're not in any kind of restrictions as of yet, but I wouldn't doubt that we're close to those. So when you're out and about, just be very careful and diligent, and don't start a fire. Thanks, sir.
Very good, thank you. What would a meeting be without the reminder from Commissioner
That's
McCall of our fire danger? As wet as it was in the spring and early summer, it's equally as dry right now. And so please be careful out there. We are still in grave danger when it comes to fire. So appreciate that reminder, Commissioner.
Keeping you in order.
Thank you. For my part, in an update, I will probably forego most of what I had planned to speak about, because we do have a lot of folks that want to speak today, and we're going to get to that. I would just give an update. I mentioned the newspaper article that Carrie Canterbury wrote, and if you get a chance to read that, it's a good summation of, I think, a good dialogue that we had over at Pathfinder Park yesterday at the event center with the district attorney and the budget. And there I see a couple people in the audience here that were in that meeting. So I appreciate that. I think we have come to, it was a good productive meeting when it comes to her budget and where she's heading with that. And so I think we're gonna come to some conclusions there as we finish up our budget process here over the next few weeks. Other than that, I have no more updates. Are there any more updates staff-wise or elected-wise? Seeing none, we now move to our citizens who wish to address the commissioners on a matter not scheduled on the agenda. And those that are on the agenda, I think we do have some of those as well. Yes, we do. Okay. For those folks that wish to speak, we do have a lot of folks that want to speak, and we do have a lot of business ahead of us. So I would just simply ask that you keep your comments and to a limited time frame so that everybody gets a chance to speak. Try not to repeat what others have already said. I know sometimes that's not the easiest thing when you're talking about the same topic, but please try to keep it to 2 or 3 minutes, and we will get everybody in and move on from there. So appreciate everybody being here. Let's begin actually with Mr. Keith Berry. This is one of the announcements I was going to make, and I forego that because we have a member of the Heritage Commission here with us today to talk about the Heritage Commission and some plans. So, Mr. Berry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
morning.
So on behalf of the Heritage Commission, I wanted to stop by and say that we are, as the Heritage Commission, we are seeking help with the residents from all over the county to develop a new Fremont County Heritage Cookbook. The commission is looking for family recipes or other recipes that reflect this region's unique cultural heritage. The recipes can be any dish or any form from any era, but must have a connection to this area of Fremont County. Those interested in sharing a recipe, those interested in sharing a recipe and the recipe's tie to a local family, past local event, or a local restaurant, you can either email them to Betsy Denny, the commission chair of the Heritage Commission, or drop them off at the Fremont County Commissioner's office with Kevin. If you do, please share any photographs or a brief historical summary of your local family or restaurant along with the recipe. And your contributions would be also acknowledged in the cookbook that we're going to try to put together for 2024. So if you guys have one, or if you know of one, please share them out.
Okay,
Cool.
thank you for that, sir. Kind of an exciting project that we're seeing, getting ready to get started with the Heritage Commission. And there'll be more to come on that. Next, we have in our list, Bill Ballheiser to speak about the Humane Society.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Punch that, yeah, punch the button right in front, there you go.
There we go.
Good morning.
My name is Bill Ballheiser, and I'm a Fremont County resident. And I'm here to talk about the the ongoing dispute between the Humane Society and Fremont County. However, I believe this discussion should be about the animals. In addition to caring for and sheltering lost, stray, abused, and abandoned animals, the shelter provides low-cost vaccinations, microchipping, spay-neutering, a free pet food pantry for people who struggle to pay for pet food. They also provide pet cremation services and veterinary services. This is a no-kill shelter with a 97% plus save rate, which is something that is unheard of in Colorado. From my personal experience, I know that the hard-working, dedicated shelter employees, what they do to achieve this goal. As anyone who has visited the shelter knows, working there can be emotionally heartbreaking and physically demanding. The pay is not great, and the employees are there because they love animals and care about them. The shelter is constantly under financial pressure, with expenses going up, and additional animals needing shelter, and funding sources are always a challenge. Even under these circumstances, the shelter has won numerous awards for excellence and has been named one of the best shelters in the country. Over the past several years, there have been disputes between the shelter and Fremont County as to the proper cost to the county for shelter services. This latest dispute was this year and has not been resolved. The county was where the county was presented a contract for $82,576, which was countered by the sheriff for $60,000, which they claimed was all that they could afford. This was $20,000 less than the previous year's contract. The contract was never signed, and the county has stopped paying. In 2023, the combined revenues to the shelter from Fremont County, Canyon City, and the other small municipalities was $144,000, which is $3.29 per capita. For comparison, El Paso and Pueblo County pay more than $8 per capita. Fremont County is paying less than half of what the neighboring counties are paying. Fremont County should be happy to sign their new contract. It's a bargain. The county should step up and pay for the final 3 months of 2023 as well. The county should be looking for ways to increase the financial support for the shelter. We're aware that the county has looked at the shelters in Pueblo and Salida, and that And they know that those shelters are already at or near capacity and are not willing or able to take on additional animals. This dispute is over $20,000 to $25,000 a year. Fremont County's annual budget is over $53 million. The sheriff's annual budget is over $13 million. Triple what it was 10 years ago, by the way. Taxpayers voted a 1% sales tax to provide an additional $5 million plus to the sheriff's department, which was supposed to solve all of their financial woes. Apparently it hasn't, if they can't come up with an additional $20,000 to pay the shelter. I have to say that $25,000 is barely a rounding error in the Fremont County budget or the Sheriff's Department budget, but it's a big deal to the shelter. I'm asking the commissioners, the sheriff, and the director of the shelter to set aside their differences, and I know there are some, sit down and do what is best for the animals and for the people of Fremont County. Surely we can find a way to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Next is Kim Blackberg. Did I get it right this time? I don't think I got it right last time.
That's fine. Happens. Okay, so you know, I'm Kim Blackberg. I'm from Penrose. I went to the Humane Society, got the budget that you requested, and now I would like to know when the contract will be signed.
We are in budget time right now, and we'll have the budget hearing in November, and then we will make decisions.
Okay. I'd like to address my questions to Debbie, because she is, Commissioner Bell, you are in charge of District 2?
Kim, before you go there,
Yes.
if I may, I should have addressed this at the beginning, and I appreciate, Bill, your comments, and we are taking notes, by the way. But we're not going to do a Q&A, a back and forth. If you have comments, we'll be happy to note them and address them as we can. But this isn't going to be a debate or dialogue. If you have comments or questions, feel free to ask them.
Well, I did ask a question on when. My question is, the thousands and thousands of tax-paying residents of District 2 are forced to deal with this situation because you canceled the contract that was signed in 2022. What are we supposed to do with these animals that we find, animals that are being hit by cars, animals that are attacking livestock? It's putting the people of District 2 in a very bad situation, and I want to know what can be done about this.
Okay. Anything else?
No. It's not over, as I told you before.
Next is, can't read the last name, Cooper
Barnes, maybe?
Barnes?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm a resident of Penrose. for
Is
about
your last
40
name Barnes?
I'm sorry?
Is your last name Barnes? Do we have
Oh,
that
no,
correct?
Banning, B-A-N-N-I-N-G,
Okay.
sorry.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
My writing
No, that's
obviously
all
is
right.
not great. I've been a resident of Penrose for about 10 years, and I've had pretty much a history of over our life moving quite a bit. We've always moved to what I consider to be communities that drive into a bigger area for work, but they come to small like Penrose. And there's always about, after 8 or 9 years, you see a large influx of people coming into an area. Penrose is really prime for growth. And that's really what we're wanting to do. We want to improve Penrose in a lot of different ways. At some point, we would like to have a little more conversation on what we can do to get roads paved. Somehow some of them do get paved, and I'm not sure why, because they were already paved, but many of them are just still dirt roads. So I'm going to keep it short, but in essence, Penrose is asking for your help on how we can become a better community. We can have more people come into the area, pay taxes, shop in Canyon City, and just do great things for this area. So we are not your adversaries in Penrose. We are your constituents, and we need to know what it is we can do to help you help us. So that's pretty much where we're at. And my follow-up basically is, Kim and I were here last session to speak about the animals. And I will tell you, while there's not, an overwhelming amount of animals, there are some that do get out. There are some people that physically and financially can't, keep their animals in for whatever reason. But it does harm livestock. And unfortunately, I will speak up that some of my animals have been involved in that, which we have spent quite a bit of money to keep them contained and everything. They're big dogs. They're scary dogs because they feel they're protecting their community. But nonetheless, all residents of Penrose and Canyon City need to do more for the animals, and that's my contribution to this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Cooper.
And you do a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next on the agenda, or next on the list, is Katie Scheibler.
Morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time.
Morning.
So I'm a relatively new resident of the area. I am a resident of Florence, but I come with a pretty unique set of experiences that put me in the animal welfare community. In my free time, I do tracking, trapping, and reuniting of lost animals. And some of the things I'm going to say are probably not going to feel very good to the residents of the county, but Fremont County is kind of known as the red-headed stepchild of taking care of animals. And that's true for people in the community around the state. And I don't think that's the place that we want to be. And unfortunately, with the lapsing of this contract, it's solidifying public ideas about who we are. I don't believe that's who we are. I don't believe that's who you want us to be. And so I'm urging the county and the sheriff's office and the shelter to work together to solve this problem. We are in 2023, and frankly, it is embarrassing that we can't come to an agreement to take care of animals in this county. And I think there's a misconception that it's just about the animals. It's not. When you don't have the necessary services for animals in this community, you're putting people at risk. People like me, like the people in this town, in this chamber, they're going to take on the role of an animal control officer without training, right, without experience, because there are no other options. And that's putting people at risk when there's no need for it. And so I think in some of the comments that have been made before, and I will say that there's a divergence between minds of kind of the old school, they're just dogs, they're just cats, they'll kind of do their thing, and some of the newer people moving here that sort of treat their animals more as like little accessories, right? Well, there's a whole line in between there, and all of those people live here. The problem still remains that this is a necessary and imperative service for this county, and how this was allowed to lapse is really unjustifiable in my mind. So I really urge you to work together, get aside whatever egos exist, get aside whatever discrepancies exist, and make this work for your constituents. Please. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Last that we have here is Tim Jordan.
Tim Jordan, 844 Sumo Avenue in Florence. I have a request. I'd like to withdraw my 3 minutes and give those to the shelter director, Doug Ray, who's present. I'd rather hear from him. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. I have one question.
It's up to you.
You want to come up and speak, Doug?
And you can still have your 3 minutes, by the way.
That's okay. He can have it. Thanks, Doug.
I actually wasn't planning on speaking at all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead, sir.
You know, a lot's been said today. I mean, what Katie just said was spot on. I certainly appreciate everything that she said. I'm almost wondering if I should just sit down and talk to the sheriff. I firmly believe that the sheriff is doing everything that he possibly can. I support the sheriff in everything that he does. I believe that this is coming down above the sheriff, and the sheriff is not being allowed to fund the animal shelter. And that is my opinion and my opinion alone. I could be 1,000% wrong. That is just my opinion on what I've been hearing and what I've been, as I've been talking to people, if you will. It's been quite a time out there because the county has put the shelter in a really bad position where we are not able to provide services to Fremont County residents, and we're not able to provide pet services to pets in Fremont County. And the first time that I've been here in 9 years, we're in this situation. So I'm kind of hopeful that we can get past all of the drama and everything, whether I've been part of it or whatnot. But like I said, maybe I just need to sit down and talk to the sheriff one-on-one and see how can we do this. But again, I think if I do that, I don't think the sheriff can do anything because I really believe his hands are tied. So again, I really wasn't planning on speaking. I have nothing prepared for. I just talking.
Well, appreciate you doing that.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. That is the end of this list. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to address the commission on matters that are not on the agenda for today? Seeing none, we will move on to the next part of our agenda, which is item number 8-1, old business.
It's 10 o'clock. You might want to address that however you want to do it.
So it is 10 o'clock. And we are scheduled for a 10 o'clock public hearing on the Tallahassee Resources Exploration Project, followed by the zone consolidation and rewrite. Any preference on how we go?
Dr. Bellantoni is saying they can delay. If you want to do the old business first, let those people that are here, and then we'll jump into that. Thank you.
So what we will do is we will take care of the old business in item number 8 on the agenda, and then we will go to our public hearings, which are scheduled for 10 a.m., but which means no sooner than 10 a.m. So we will get to them.
Thanks for bearing with us.
Yes, we do appreciate that. So item number 1, under old business, the final decision on 22-001 Mystery Subdivision, filing 2. Address is located at 1245 3rd Street in Penrose. The nature of these requests were the preliminary plan approval to subdivide 33.65 acres into 7 single-family residential lots. 2, to vacate the 25-foot road easement dedicated to Fremont County for a roadway. And 3, waiver from subdivision design standards, Appendix 1B, lot standards, front on public street, to exempt lots 3 and 4 from the requirement to front on the public street. And 4, the waiver of development of Margarita Way to county standards. As part of the process in this, the commission has met and discussed the merits of the of the application, the testimony and public hearing that we heard at a prior meeting, and came up with a list of facts and findings that are important for the final decision that is being made today. We are going to read some of those. Did you have a list that you wanted to go through?
I think most of it is important.
Right.
Yeah,
So
always.
it may take a moment, but if you would like, Mr. Chair, I will read what I do believe is relevant.
I would appreciate that, Commissioner.
What I'm going to be reading from is Resolution Number 33 for Fremont County Series of 2023. So we have, just so you know, we do have a list of whereas clauses that are pretty well publicly known. So I'm going to begin with item number 2, I believe, of the resolutions themselves. 2, the applicant had requested a waiver of the requirement to build Margarita Way in accordance with county road standards and has withdrawn that waiver request. Number 3, the current preliminary plan subdivision design is significantly different from several previously submitted designs. Number 4, the denial of any submission plat and preliminary plan must be based on a failure to conform to the requirements of the Fremont County subdivision regulations. Number 5, the preliminary plan application does not conform to the requirements of the Fremont County subdivision regulations unless the board approves the waiver request of the applicant. Number 6, the board agrees with general county policy that vacation of platted county road rights-of-way should occur only under compelling circumstances. The 25-foot road easement was dedicated by plat in 1997 as part of the mystery subdivision process. While the topography in the area may be challenging, the 25-foot dedicated easement or right-of-way for 2nd Street is essential for future expansion of the county road system, public utilities, and other public purposes. Number 7, the board generally favors development and recognizes that housing in Fremont County is in demand. Cost of development is a major consideration for a developer, but the board must take the public interest into account. Improvement of the infrastructure that accommodates development is essential to mitigate the impacts of development on county taxpayers. Number 8, the board finds that the policy of having residential lots front on a public street is in the public interest and promotes access to public utilities, emergency services, and other public services. This goal may require the construction of L Street or a portion thereof. Fremont County staff recommendations carry great weight with this board, and staff has recommended against approval of this preliminary plan for numerous reasons detailed in the staff report for this application. Number 10, previous designs and configurations of the mystery subdivision filing 2 preliminary plan more closely complied with the requirements of the Fremont County subdivision regulations. Number 11, the board is amenable to variances from the subdivision design standards as set forth in the regulations, including those being requested in this application. However, no lot shown in the preliminary plan before the board fully complies with the subdivision design standards. Number 12, the board finds that the non-compliance with the subdivision design standards is largely due to the desire to avoid the cost of constructing L Street between 2nd Street and 3rd Street, rather than site-specific conditions that could make access onto L Street impractical. Be it resolved by the Fremont County Board of County Commissioners that based on the findings set forth herein, the application for preliminary plan for mystery subdivision filing 2 is hereby denied. Be it further resolved that pursuant to Section VE of the Fremont County subdivision regulations, a submittal of a preliminary plan for the same property within 2 years of the date of denial is not allowed without evidence of a significant change of area conditions or a significant change in the proposed application. The board states that this provision applies only to current subdivision design that is the subject of this resolution. Previous designs or iterations of the same may be submitted and will not be barred by the 2-year restriction. With that, Mr. Chair, I move to approve resolution number 33.
I will second that, Mr. Chair, but I'd also like to say that land use issues are some of the most important things we do. That's why all of you are here today, whether it's this land decision or another one that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But sometimes they're the most difficult as well. And that's why we took the time to go back with, I had 3 pages of notes myself, I think, from the last public hearing on this property. And then we talked amongst ourselves of our ideas of what we heard and went off of our notes, and that's where these findings came from. So I encourage Hoshi to look at this again, submit it again. It's a great idea. We need the properties for people to build homes. It's just we've got to do it the right way for the future of anybody else that comes in the area. Thanks. That was with the second.
That was with the second.
Yes, sir.
And just to pile on that as well, you know, we do need these lots. We have a housing crisis here in Colorado, and we have it here in Fremont County as well. And we need these and many others to help stem that tide of affordability and attainability when it comes to housing. You know, we don't take it lightly what we're doing here today, and we really hope that we find a way forward on this. And I think some of those ideas were read by Commissioner Bell, which I do appreciate. She just does that a whole lot better than I do. So I appreciate her handling that for me today. But in any case, it has been moved, it has been seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Please.
I would just like to say, Hoshi, thank you so much for your dedication and drive and determined to help make not only Penrose, but all of Fremont County a better place. In our public hearing, we had person after person stand up and testify to what an amazing human being you are. We agree with that. We are not opposed to this in idea, but there are some things that we believe need to be fixed before we can let it move on. So I just want to say thank you again for your dedication to us. And we definitely do need additional housing in Fremont County, as we all know. So thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second for resolution number 33, series of 2023. Roll call.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you for that. Next item on the agenda, actually, I may indulge your patience just one more item. Angela, would that be okay? Huh?
I actually might have got it wrong, too. Did you say you would wait on that one or the other one? Because you're here for both of them.
That's right. I think we can go ahead and take care of this proclamation first, and then we can do the public hearings and then go back and finish the new business. And so let's go on to new business, the Fremont County Adoption Day Proclamation. Our representative here today is Ms. Tanya Sutton. And is Amanda not here today?
She is.
Oh, there you are.
Hiding in the back.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
please proceed if you would like to read it, or,
Great.
yes.
Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us, and thank you, everybody, for letting us squeeze in. Just really quickly, I would like to recognize our 2 permanency workers are also in attendance, Amy Brott and Brenda Rawl, and they truly do their really hard work, and they do all of the things to allow us to celebrate this really important and really exciting day. So I will get started. Fremont County Adoption Day Proclamation. Whereas the County of Fremont recognizes the importance of giving children permanent, safe, and loving families through adoption. And whereas Colorado is recruiting for 395 children who are free for adoption, and Fremont County has 16 children waiting to be adopted. And whereas to help these children find permanent, nurturing families, the Fremont County Court will open their doors for National Adoption Day on November 13th, 2023, to finalize the adoption of 7 local children and join other organizations to celebrate adoptions. And whereas the effort, along with similar celebrations in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico, will offer children the chance to live with stable and loving families and encourage other dedicated individuals to make a powerful difference in the life of a child through adoption. Now we ask that the Fremont County Commissioners, by virtue of the authority vested to this board, authorize and proclaim November 13th, 2023 as Adoption Day in Fremont County, and in doing so, urge all citizens to join in a national effort to raise awareness about the importance of adoption.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Any embellishments?
Just would really like to really point out 7 children. That's a really big lift for our staff. There's a lot of work that goes into adoptions, totally worth it, but they have really pulled together along with some of the attorneys that we work closely with, and we just want to say thank you to them as well as the courts, because without their hard work, we wouldn't be here. And we have a sibling group of 4 that are being adopted on the 13th of November. And so when we see those big sibling groups, not only getting their finalized adoption, but staying together as a sibling group, it's huge. And so again, thanks to our staff for that, and thank you to all of you for allowing us to come and present this.
Did you say 4 of the 7?
Yes.
Are a sibling
One
group?
sibling
Yes.
group.
Wow.
Yes. I know, right?
Well, well, thank those parents
Absolutely, we
for
will.
us as well. And thank you and all of our crew out there. I say it every time you guys are in here for a proclamation or for whatever else. You guys do a fantastic job out there. And we love taking every opportunity we can to brag on you guys, whether it's here or whether it's our meetings with our other fellow commissioners in CCI. Thank you for everything you guys do, and this is awesome.
Or on
Awesome
the
news.
radio, because we do a lot of talking about our proclamations with DHS on the radio as well.
great.
Mr. Chair, I also would like to note that it is on our calendar to be in attendance at Adoption Day on November 13th. A lot of the things that we do as commissioners, it's not a fun job. I mean, I'm going to say it's not a fun job. That day makes up for everything else we've endured. So to know that we not only have 7, I mean, I'm getting teary-eyed over here, to know that we have 7 kids who are finding their forever homes, and 4 of them are siblings who get to stay together. It's unreal. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I agree. I've been, the last couple of years, been able to make it, and it's really, really cool to see the excitement on those kids and the families. And then, to me, it's even more to the heart because I knew a couple of the families and didn't know that they were actually doing that. So I look forward to being there this year, and I have a motion if you're ready, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the Adoption Day proclamation and proclaim November 13, 2023, Fremont County Adoption Day.
I second. Thank you all so very much for the work you do.
Yes, thank you. It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your indulgence on that. And everybody that's here, actually.
Here, we have that proclamation for him.
Oh, Tanya. Wait.
Time out.
Picture time.
You go take a picture?
Are we going to do a picture?
Okay.
Time out.
Your microphone's off.
All righty. Now we will move on to our public hearings. Time is 10:19, and open the public hearing for CUP 23-001 Tallahassee Resources Exploration Project. This is for an application to conduct mineral exploration activities. Do to further delineate the known uranium deposit and collect data that will guide development of an environmentally responsible mining technique encompassing a boundary of 734 acres.
Microphone, please.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning,
And
and-
thank you for your patience, everyone.
Please don't make me cry again. Okay, moving on.
There we go. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. So we are here this morning, I am here this morning to present to you Okapi Resources, specifically Tallahassee LLC, and their proposed continuing exploration of the Tallahassee Valley and resource. Next slide, please. We have three people I'd like to introduce to you because they will be speaking to you this morning. We have Mr. Andrew Ferrier, who is the Managing Director. Please stand. We have Mr. Tim Brown, who is the U.S. Country Manager. And we have Mr. Jim Villeneuve, who is the Technical Advisor. We also have with us Mr. Steve Cohen. He may look familiar. And he is our industry expert. So we will be talking on those. That's our agenda. And we will begin with Mr. Ferrier to talk about the industry.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Angela. Thanks you for the opportunity to speak. As Angela mentioned, my name's Andrew Ferrier. I'm the Managing Director of Okapi Resources. And just to connect the dots up front, Okapi Resources is the name of the head company. We're an ASX-listed company, an Australian Stock Exchange-listed company. And Tallahassee Resources, in which the name of the permit is under, the proposed permit is under, is essentially our US sub, which holds our assets here in the US. So you'll see Okapi Resources here a lot in this presentation, but effectively it's the same as Tallahassee Resources. As I said, I'm the MD of the company. We're very focused on uranium around the world. We have projects in the US, Canada, and Australia. And we're just continuing to grow the company as we see a huge renaissance occurring both in the uranium and the nuclear industry. It's been happening for the last 2 to 3 years, and we expect it to continue to ramp up as things goes on. And just moving to the next slide. This is the team. I'm based in Sydney, Australia. My background's in engineering. I've been in mining for my whole career, worked around the globe in the US and Canada, worked in projects, as I said, in Africa, South America, and in particular in uranium. And that's where I first got to meet Jim Villeneuve, who will come up and speak in part of this presentation. Jim and I work closely at a uranium project called the Reno Creek Uranium Project, where we effectively did a huge amount of work and drilling on that project, took that project all the way through to mine permit status. And Jim was intimately involved in that and received significant compliments from the Wyoming DEQ in terms of the reclamation we did on the drill programs we completed there up at Reno Creek. You also hear from Tim Brown, he's based here in Colorado, done numerous drilling up at Cripple Creek for the last 20 years, so very experienced and small team that we have. Fabrizio Pirelli is our chairman, based in Australia. Ben Vallerine, most people know he was involved in Black Crane, so we intimately were at the Tallahassee project as well. So we have a small, highly experienced, nimble team. As I said, this is our corporate structure. We obviously have the Tallahassee projects here in Fremont County, which we're all here to talk about. We also have other projects in Colorado and Utah. We also have a pretty substantial position in the Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan up in Canada. They are also exploration stage projects as well. So we're clearly focused on uranium and look to move all these projects forward in the coming months to years. So I guess this is the heart of why I got up to speak. The guys will talk in detail about the permit application, but I think before we really run into that, I think it's important to understand why uranium and why nuclear, right? And nuclear has been in the news a lot, particularly over the last 2 to 3 years, as the whole world has woken up and really realised that nuclear energy is the only way to have clean, safe, renewable baseload power that operates 24/7. And that sets it apart from other renewable options out there. And nuclear is incredibly becoming an important part of the energy mix, the energy portfolio that nearly every country in the world is adopting. So today there's 440 nuclear reactors at the moment. The US has more reactors than any other country in the world, 92, 93 operating reactors. It accounts for 20% of all your energy, close to 50% of all your renewable energy, and it's going to become an incredibly important part of that energy mix moving forward. And the world's moving to nuclear. There's 55 reactors being built as we speak right now. So that's a 10% increase in nuclear reactors. And nuclear has obviously become an incredibly important part of the fuel supply moving forward. Sorry, next slide. And then if you sort of reflect on where the US is from an energy security point of view, the world changed dramatically after the invasion of Ukraine. The US effectively sources all of its uranium from overseas, which is a concern when it's 20% of your power supply. And this is a relatively simple demonstration of just where the US sits in terms of how much uranium it has produced in the past and how little it produces today. So it's become highly dependent on foreign sources of uranium. Now some of that comes from safe neighbours like Australia and Canada, if I can be so brave to say, but also a lot of that comes out of Russia, which doesn't seem sustainable today. And Congress is looking to act. There's bills in the House committees which are talking about banning Russian uranium coming into the US. The US is very quick to ban oil, gas and coal. It's taken a longer period of time to deal with uranium. It's getting bipartisan support at this point in time, and both parties agree that nuclear is going to be incredibly important. So I'll leave that slide as is, but just to say that this isn't just me saying things, this is actual action we're seeing in Congress as we speak. And then on the next slide, we just talk about how much money the government's pulling into nuclear at the moment. There's obviously things like US Strategic Uranium Reserve Funds being set up, which allows stockpiles to accumulate here in the US to provide a buffer if anything occurs to supply chains. You also had the Inflation Reduction Act last year, which was it was called the Inflation Reduction Act, but it was a green energy bill more than anything, and a big slab of that money went straight into the nuclear industry here in the US. A lot of them went to the reactors, the US utilities, to make sure that those reactors continue to be economically viable for decades and decades to come. So that's now economically sorted, and now what needs to occur is that you need to have a supply chain feeding those nuclear reactors, which is, self-sustaining. And the best way to do that is have uranium-producing countries you trust. This rehashes something that I opened up with, but I thought it was really important to effectively state it again. The world's going to need a whole lot more electricity moving forward. If everyone's going to be driving around Teslas, they need to be charged overnight. The only way to do that in a sustainable fashion is through nuclear energy. It's carbon-free, it's reliable, it works around the clock, which is absolutely fundamental when you think about how the electricity supply chain is going to work moving forward. And the key thing, other point on that side is, and this is a global phenomenon, but the support for nuclear in the general public has been ticking up aggressively over the last 3 to 5 years as this understanding has really, really come home. People really understand this point now. And this is a graph of the uranium market itself. You can see we're sitting here in 2023 and the uranium price is close to $70 a pound, and in isolation that figure doesn't mean too much, but if you look at it on a fairly substantial timeline, you can see that it's gone up a long way since 2014, 2015, and this is effectively just market dynamics kicking into effect, where the world's waking up, realising there's a lot more demand The existing nuclear reactors aren't going anywhere. There's going to be a lot of restarts of potentially idle reactors. Japan is a great example of that. China, India, UAE are building nuclear reactors like no tomorrow, and the world's going to need more uranium to feed those reactors. And what we're seeing is, particularly from US utilities, there's been a significant uptake in contracting. So these US utilities that need enriched uranium to feed their nuclear reactors have gone out quite aggressively over the last 12 to 18 months to make sure they've locked in the fuel that they require to feed these nuclear reactors. And that's been a big change in the market, where previously a lot of these utilities have been willing to just soak up uranium as it becomes available, but now energy security and security of that supply has become a really forefront of their minds, and they're locking in contracts to make sure they can run those reactors for years and years to come. And that's had a big impact on the uranium prices. There's obviously becomes a scarcity of uranium as these utilities pull pounds out of the market, and they just become more valuable. So we expect that to go up significantly. Uranium price needs to be probably a little bit higher than where it is today to incentivise more mines into production, and we look forward to seeing that uptick in the future. This is the last slide I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to pass the baton over to Tim, and he's going to really provide the details about our CUP application. But the key point of this slide, and Tim will touch on it, is there's a huge amount of existing data we have on the Tallahassee projects. And that's a huge benefit for us because we do not need to redo a lot of the work that's been done in the past. That data is extremely valuable to us, and we use it very closely in trying to understand exactly what the Tallahassee project is and how we're going to move it forward. But what today we're looking for is an exploration permit. So we need to go and do a few more holes to get a little bit more technical data so we can pull that together into economic studies of what the Tallahassee project could be. This project still has a ways to go in terms of that technical studies part that we need to assess, but the first step in that process is an exploration permit, which is what we seek today. Unless you guys have any questions, I'll pass the baton on to Tim.
I've got a question for you.
Yes, please.
So you talked about low production in the U.S., and I'm sure it has to do with price, but there's a huge deposit of uranium up near Rawlins, Wyoming that is hardly being mined. Why are we still searching for someone? There's huge deposits of it that aren't being mined.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure if it's where we're going back to that graph, but you can effectively see uranium production here in the US dying off in the 1980s. And effectively at that point in time, very cheap uranium was started initially coming out of Kazakhstan, which is still one of the biggest uranium producers in the world today. And they, at that point in time, could produce uranium a lot cheaper than it could be produced in the US. Now that over time has equalised to some extent, like they've produced the cheapest pounds, their cost of production is going up. And at that point in time, there wasn't a requirement or a desire from an energy security point of view to worry too much about where your uranium came from. But you're right, the US has significant resources of uranium that it can tap into moving forward.
Thanks.
No problems. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. What I'd like to do is give a few more technical details on the project.
Can you introduce yourself for us?
I'm sorry. Tim Brown, U.S. Country Manager for OCOPI.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to provide some technical details on the project and zero in on exactly what we're trying to do up there. And the slide on the screen shows a lot of detail on one small slide, but I want to emphasize a few things while it's up on the screen. Specifically, we've got a significant area of surface and mineral rights under lease. What we have leased is all private surface and private minerals. There's no federal involved in that. We're focused today on this part down here on the south side with the dark blue color in the background. Hard to read the text that says CUP area over the Hanson, the picnic tree deposits. But we're specifically focused on that, so I'll talk about that today. The blue color in the background here shows the minerals that we have leased in that area. And we have surface use agreements with the owners of several parcels in that area as well. The two big areas up here are the Taylor and Boyer ranches where we've leased surface and minerals as well. So we've got a lot of stakeholders in this project. The other thing I want to point out on this map are these little symbols down here. These are historic mines that are up in that district that have been in there for 50 or 60 years. All the black dots that you see scattered across this area is all the historic drilling that's taken place up there since the 1970s that I know about, that we've been able to grab the data. So there's a long history of mining and exploration up here, and today this is one of the largest uranium deposits, unexploited uranium deposits in the United States. Next slide, please. You know, just going through the permit process and the steps we've taken to get here, we have road use agreements with the South T-Bar Ranch. Again, we're on the northern end of this southern section down here in the location map in the corner. But we have a road use agreement with the South T-Bar Ranch where we give them compensation for road use. We have to track the number of trips in and out that we do. I report that on a monthly basis. As per our agreement, we differentiate between light vehicles and heavy vehicles based on the number of axles on the vehicles. And we've got a compensation plan in place with them on a sliding scales for the number of round trips. If we do this many, we pay this month at the end of the year or this month. So we track the use of the roads coming in here and then around here and another couple of roads going up here. So in terms of the permit process, we're here today as part of this with the conditional use permit number 1, and we're also working our way through the notice of intent. We're nearly complete with that with the DRMS with the state of Colorado. So we're very close to finishing that. So the project goals here, we are proposing up to 20 drill holes shown as the black dots on this map to collect additional data. This data will be used to design and conduct additional laboratory and technical studies, as Andrew mentioned, because we don't have all the answers to these questions yet. It's a different day than it was in the 1970s. There's a lot more information out there, a lot more technology that can be applied, and we want to drill some core holes to get hydrological information, metallurgical information, geochemical, geotechnical, environmental information to help us advance the project. The launch of the program, I'm sorry, just before we go on, the launch of the program is really dependent on weather and driller availability. I don't think we'll have time to finish it, to launch it this year before the snow flies and the water lines freeze. Our drill season typically would run from the 1st of May to the end of November. And what we're proposing for the program is really going to be done in about 2 months' time. Okay, next slide, please. Just to talk about some of the preparations that we've done. The photo up here shows the drill that was up there in 2012 when Black Range Minerals was working. But we will be contacting and meeting with the surface owners with which we have agreements already to go out and make sure that they know what we're doing and why we're doing it and where we're doing it. We have a road inspection with the South T-Bar Ranch, so we go out and look at the conditions of the road today. We'll check it again at the end of the program, and if there's any damage, we pay for it. I'll be out there putting stakes in the ground for the collar locations. If necessary, we'll build some drill pads out there. And we're also going to utilize a solids removal unit. I'll talk about that in a couple more slides here because this is a little change from a change for the better since the Planning Commission. I've got a slide that will expand on that. Next one, please. Yeah, typical exploration programs where collars get staked out in the field. We're fortunate there's a lot of flat area out there, so you don't need to do much excavation to build a drill pad. The slide on the right shows the topsoil that's been scraped off the top and stockpiled on the side. That's important because during the reclamation, that gets recovered over the drill pad. It gets recontoured back to the original contours, raked and seeded for new vegetation. again, this shows a couple more drill rigs in progress. One on the left here is a big truck-mounted rig with an air compressor. Importantly, the one on the right is 24/7 drilling with lights downcast so that they don't shine in anybody's eyes that don't need it. We don't know what drill we'll be using yet, but it may be on tracks or tire mounted. There'll be a pipe truck or a pipe rack. I think you can see the pipe truck right here. There's the cab of the truck as they can take the rods off the truck. And there'll be a water truck. There'll be a pickup truck up there. We plan to drill 24/7 so we can get the drilling over and done with as quickly as possible. And we will be drilling core from top to bottom. This is taking out a cylinder of core in the hole. We pull it all out, and this reduces the cuttings, and the core will be taken off site and logged by the geologists. We'll have portable sanitation closets. There'll be up to 4 people at a time at site, usually a 2-man drill crew, and there might be a geologist up there or inspectors who come by for one reason or another. And again, we track all the trips in and out. The total maximum disturbance here will be, to stay under a notice of intent, it has to be less than 5 acres of disturbance. I suspect we'll come in at something significantly less than that, but I'm not quite sure yet till we get the roads staked out and planned out. So there'll be trips with the water truck. There will be a diesel generator. Fuel will be stored on the vehicles, on the drillers' vehicles, so they'll bring it in tanks. And they'll all have the one rig will have a spill containment kit on site. So I mentioned the solid removal unit. In the previous presentation to the Planning Commission, we talked about sumps that get dug next to a drill. And this is standard industry practice because it's very easy to dig a hole there and let all the cuttings run in and all the drill fluids run in, and then keep them contained, and then at the end of it you backfill your sump. But as this is an extraordinary project, we have to be much more careful than that. We don't want any water leaking out into the groundwater. We need to contain all that. And we've come up with a better solution, and I'd like to just go into a few details here. The sketch up here shows the drill rig on the left-hand side. Under the drill is the hole that's being drilled. The blue line dropping down are the drill rods and the drill bit at the bottom. And then as they drill that hole, they have to pump fluids down there to circulate water to the bit so that the diamond bit stays cool. The drill fluids come back up the side of the hole. And what we're going to do now is use a closed loop system where all the fluids are collected at the top of the hole. They're pumped over here to the solids removal unit, which is essentially a centrifuge, and it separates the cuttings from the drill fluids. The drill fluids, which are then cleaner, go right back down the center of the drill steel to be reused. The cuttings, which is about 34% of the hole, the rest of it goes off to the geologist. The cuttings go into a leak-proof container, and they will be trucked off-site and disposed of. There are 2 facilities in Colorado that will handle that material. One is Clean Harbor's Deer Trail facility, and the other is up by Golden, which is the Foothills facility run by Republic's landfill. This one just shows a couple of pictures of the actual solids removal unit from a couple different perspectives. The cylindrical unit up here on top is a centrifuge. But this is a big improvement as it minimizes the impact on the environment. It protects the wildlife. No animals, cows, deer, elk are going to fall into an open sump. It protects the water and it protects the soil. Hopefully it will also reduce our water consumption. It'll reduce the quantities of required drill fluids, and it helps reduce the wear and tear on the equipment. It's much easier too in terms of health and safety, and it's a much more efficient drilling operation. So we think it's a much better method to handle the drill cuttings than we proposed earlier, and that's why we heard some concerns and questions, and that's why we went with this unit. Just a little bit of a talk on the reclamation aspect of it. This is a pad that's been reclaimed and recontoured. There's another one over here that's been reclaimed, recontoured, and reseeded, and it's hard to pick out the actual drill pad a few years later. We currently have a bond for around $278,000 for our project on the Taylor and Boyer ranches, although we have requested to reduce that to get a little bit of the bond money back in our own pockets and apply it here at the Hanson deposit. The bond is not completely released until the vegetation has regrown and they come out and inspect it. Usually that's after 3 years of vegetation growth. And I'd like to note that Black Range had all their bond money returned in years past as they completely reclaimed and revegetated everything. These are a couple of their paths that we're able to see their photos. So the next slide, a little hard to see on this one, but you can see some blue dots up here. Again, the location here, you can see the blue dots where we have proposed holes. Thank you. So those are the 20 holes that we might drill up to 20 holes, but certainly no more than that. If you go to the next slide, what I want to show is those same blue dots. A little hard to see here, but the yellow dots are all the existing drill collars from the historic exploration work that's been done up there. We don't need to define anything about the size of the deposit, which is already well known and well outlined. What we want to do, as I mentioned earlier, is get that additional information for metallurgical and geochemical and geotechnical data. The next, can you go back up just one slide, please? The photos in the next slide were taken right down here at the road intersection. And really, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Jim, who has had a lot of experience with reclamation, and as Andrew mentioned, he received an award from the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality, and he's going to just talk on the next couple of slides here.
Before you go,
I got a question for you, Tim. So you talked about the road use agreement with South T-Bar. Appreciate that. That's a private road. But what about our county road that leads to that South T-Bar?
We've had an agreement with them, and because it's such a short-term duration, they said we didn't have to gravel any part of that or put any mag chloride down. So we've had conversations with Mike Witt.
Is that based on your 12 trips a day?
Exactly. Yeah. He had to, we have an agreement.
16 trips? I keep hearing 16 from the voices. 16 trips, okay, thanks.
Yeah, up to. So we have an agreement in place with them too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Tim. Good morning.
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 Thanks for the opportunity to briefly talk about some of the reclamation issues. Actually, if you don't mind, please, go back to the previous slide.
Could I get you to introduce yourself as you begin?
Excuse me. My name is Jim Villeneuve. I'm a technical advisor to BOCC, and I've probably spent half or 2/3 of the last 50 years of my career, all this gray hair, in the uranium business, mining and processing. And so he has an old timer to help him out. That's a lot of drilling that occurred. And if you could roll back to the previous slide. Now, you don't expect to see individual holes from 1,000 drill holes, but you expect, if there wasn't good reclamation, you would expect to see some sort of a scar. And I've seen thousands of acres across Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado that have those where the reclamation wasn't good. And you don't see that. There's nothing there. And so the reclamation, that gives us an idea of one part of what does it mean to have successful reclamation. And we took those same practices and used them up in Wyoming for our Reno Creek project. Black Range did a really good job, at least based on the information that we have, and they got all of their bond money back, which means they did a good enough job. And I assume that they wasn't part of it, but I assume that they also worked closely with individual landowners, ranchers, and so forth to make sure that they got the job done correctly. That's the basis for our moving forward, is trying to define what a successful reclamation program is going to look like. So if now, please, go to the pretty green we're out this spring, and this is right at the corner of, I don't remember the name of the road, but anyway, it's the Equestrian Center, for those of you who know that Tallahassee Creek area. And yeah, had a great wet spring. Everything looks really good. But there are literally tens to hundreds of drill holes in those pictures, from not only the cypress work back in the 70s and 80s, but also Black Range. And so that gives us an idea of what our target is for reclamation on this project. Next slide, please. One of the first things that needs to get done after the drilling is to plug the hole. That protects groundwater, but also protects the surface. And under state regulations, and that's the principal guide, and our experience in drilling, mine and Tim's experience in drilling hundreds, thousands of holes in our careers, we'll cement the hole from bottom to top. In other words, run a tube down, run cement down the tube, so we're placing it right at the bottom. Withdraw the tube and let the cement build, and make sure that all of that is completely full. And let it cure, and then put bentonite up to near the surface. Plug at the top, and with a little metal identifier so that we can find it with a GPS in the future. And what that does is assure that that hole is plugged and there's no impact on groundwater. So that's the first thing. And then we take that salvaged topsoil that was in that little pile in the picture that you saw 5 or 6 slides ago. Now we can bring that back after we smooth out the site, and we can use that as a growth medium. Now we may take 4 or 6 inches, maybe take a couple of feet, kind of depends on where we are and how much we really need to have, but we'll get that back on there and then seed it, and then we turn that over to the DRMS. If you want to come out, Dan? Whoever, but DRMS sends an inspector, and they review it and determine that we both plugged the hole correctly and that we have done our revegetation, regrading and revegetation. Now, everybody knows that in our kind of climate, we're going to experience a little time that it takes to actually get it fully revegetated. It may not happen in the first year. If we get a couple of dry years, you're still back out it and you're still tweaking it. So what the DRMS does is release a portion of the bond, maybe 80% or 90% based on the cost it takes to actually do that revegetation. And they hold that money until they're satisfied that it's revegetated and that it's going to hold. So then at that point, we start going back to the landowners, and we'll tour each site with the landowners and make sure they're on board, and the same thing with STB's road committee, and make sure that they're on board with all of the reclamation of the roads, the STB's roads. Now, if our drilling was up and down all across the mountains and the valleys, we'd have lots of different seed mixes and lots of different requirements. And all of that information is available both from the county and also from the state, both DRMS and state agriculture, to figure out what the best way of revegetating is. But we're lucky in this case. All of our drill holes that we've proposed, and you can see that on the air photo maps, are going to be basically in the pasture lands or the meadow lands, dry lands, not wetlands. And so there's a fairly standard seed mix that DRMS has recommended, and we've agreed to in the DRMS permit. But we also consult with individual landowners, because we got a rancher and they know what they'd like to have, then we work with them as well. And if we're in an area where there's shrubs or trees, we make modifications to replace those. But I think in this particular case, we're not going to see any shrub or tree areas. It's all going to be grasslands. And so it will look just like that first photograph. Next slide, please. So once we're at that point and we have the DRMS inspection for whole abandonment, and they've said, okay, everything looks good, we'll release part of the bond, we spend some time with the landowners and so forth, then we still got a lot of work to do because we have 10,000 feet of core, perhaps, and we have to log all of that core, do all kinds of intensive geologic and chemical and geochemical and other engineering properties and that sort of thing, studies. And then we can start producing maps, but also do the kind of geologic and technical modeling so that we understand very well the behavior and the competency of the rocks and the minerals that are in this and how they react under different conditions. And the kind of really exciting maps, 3D maps that can be rotated and looked at that Tim loves to use. Anyway, that is basically how we go through that reclamation process. This is the kind of thing that we used in Wyoming, and it was very gratifying when the DEQ sent a letter out saying that it was as good a reclamation as they had seen in that whole district. So we were very excited, and we're happy to use it here as well. If there's questions?
On that slide, what do, I take it those are the proposed 20 holes?
They are.
That we see there, and the different layers represent, are all of those going down to that dark green layer?
Yes, the dark green is actually that very old basement rock, granitic basement rock, and all we'll do is we'll touch it just to verify the depth. You know, when you saw those yellow dots, well, Black Range and Cypress created cross sections, and I'm sure you've seen like that first front view, cross sections like that where they identified the different formations. We can now do this in 3D on a computer, and so you can do a lot of interesting things. But that's done in order for us then to map in more detail where all those layers are. We have a good idea because those yellow dots are usually about 200 feet apart, and most of the proposed holes are, you know, they may be near those or in between them, so we're kind of estimating between those existing holes where those layers are. And then we will look at properties not only within the ore zone, the mineralized part, but other sublayers within that Echo Park formation. I'm sure you've heard that term from time to time. That is, and then all of the overlying. And so we may test different properties in different places in the core so that we can have additional information that Cypress never collected and that Black Range may not have collected.
Okay.
Got another question for you. So you're talking about capping the holes and putting the cement down in there, but as you're drilling the holes and as it comes in contact with uranium, and does it fall through and contaminants fall into the groundwater?
No, those solids which contain the uranium, and the uranium is not very soluble, otherwise it wouldn't be an ore body, okay? And so those solids come up, are collected, and they go off-site. And the only other uranium in a solid form is in the core. And that's just the bottom 50 or 100 feet or so of it. All the rest of the core also will be taken off-site.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next slide, please, sir. So just for some non-technical things, because I'm not smart enough to talk about that sort of thing, the uranium industry, but fluids management, environmental, and just community concerns. Spill kits, because we're dealing with fluids, as in diesel fluid, but bearing in mind, as Mr. Brown said, diesel's delivered by a vendor to the units, not stored on site, but a spill kit there nonetheless. Erosion control, wattles, we're all familiar with that because there should be minimal pad development, but you have to have that just in the event of a precipitation event. Your packets have a fire protection plan. In Exhibit 315, you have a roadway impact analysis form that's in Exhibit 311. And just to review that, 16. Tallahassee chose 16 as a conservatively high. They wanted to cover everybody. So if we do the count, they have 2 employees always on site. So that's 4 trips in and out. It has 2 water trucks. And with this, it was 2 water trucks before the SRU came in. 2 water trucks before the SRU came in. So that potentially could be reduced, but we're going to stick with the max, okay? So now we're at 8, and we're asking for 16. And we cleared 16 with Fremont County Department of Transportation. And what those extra trips allow for is an inspector, an extra geologist. If something breaks down and a vendor has to come out on site. So instead of a roadway impact count just being my employees, or typically just employees, in the case of Tallahassee, they said, really, what is all of it? And this is just to be transparent with the staff to keep our review agreements. And then Mr. did have the same conversation with Mike Witt. And yes, sir.
If I could, how frequently would the SRU need to be taken off-site and a new one brought in, as long as we're talking roadway impacts?
You know, I just don't know the size of the containers that will be available at this point.
We need you on the microphone, please.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dan, I'm just not sure of the size of the containers at this point.
Okay.
Right, if they're like a big roll-off dumpster that's available or something smaller, so it sort of depends on that. And I don't have a better answer than that at this point, just because it's unknown. But while they're on site and half full or whatever, you know, we'll cover them as well. So nothing escapes.
Okay, thank you.
But that trip for that delivery is already accounted for because we asked for, because they asked for.
That must have been, as I was going through this, I read there was 1 truck, and it says maybe up to 2, and the road analysis is for 1 truck, unless I missed it somewhere else in the application. So now you're saying 2 water trucks again?
No, two trips per day. There's 1 water truck.
Okay.
With 2 trips per day.
Okay.
Okay. Please, sir. I spent some time at Grange Minerals and found the work done by Susan Wyman of Whetstone and Associates during the Black Range Minerals exploration days. And I also searched and found the Western Water and Land consultants' reports to the county that they did each year that reviewed the Whetstone reports and the processes to confirm that they were being protective and characterizing the water appropriately and taking the necessary steps. So Tallahassee is picking up at that point with what was lessons learned during Black Range Minerals. They are continuing with the monitoring plan that ended the Black Range, and that is every fall, the suite, the wells have already been the same wells and the same surface locations that were recommended back by Wyman at Black Range. The important part of this is in the, I believe it was the 2013 or 2012 final report at the very end of exploration, the Western Water and Land consultants made the statement that there was no evidence to suggest that the elevated concentrations of uranium in the wells related to the exploration. So that wasn't a statement made by Whetstone. That was a statement made by the county's consultant as they reviewed the Whetstone data. So Tallahassee is picking up where Black Range left off. They will implement the monitoring program that was approved by the DRMS at the end of that exploration. Next slide, please. Community concerns. So as Mr. Brown stated, we have been going through the DRMS Notice of Intent to Explore process as well as this. And so we have pulled together the comments that we've received to date. And this is also part of the conversation that Mr. Brown and Mr. Villeneuve had with the property owners that have the surface uses agreements and things. So here are the issues that have been brought up by the community in that first erosion control, and that is being mitigated with the water and the minimal disturbance on the surface. The waterways and the riparian areas, that change to implement SRU just cleared up so many issues regarding potential to discharge and spill, because that's all gone, because this is a closed system now. Regarding the water, the processed water, and regarding the cuttings, it's all closed. There's nothing left to percolate or infiltrate. And there is a monitoring program. Protection of wildlife, the SRU does that too. So instead of having the open pits now where that wildlife could walk in and out of, those are gone. It's all finished. So there'll be no impact continuing the process that Black Range, they had none, and so Tallahassee will work towards. No impacts, habitats, the wildlife. There was that change in this meeting today. They will optimize each drill location, and as they go out and Tim plants a collar and he says, you know, I don't like this one, I'm going to move it 20 feet this way or that way to be protective of something, he can do that, and he will do that. So at this point, we are just respectfully requesting an approval to continue this exploration for technical information. They have learned from Black Range Minerals, and they're taking those lessons learned and the best management practices of Black Range. In addition, both Mr. Brown and Mr. Villeneuve are active in the industry, so they're on top of and current on what is being used today, since 2023 is different than 1970. Hard to read. Implementing the solids removal unit, and then requesting waivers for landscaping, lighting, utility plan, and a drainage plan.
Okay, I've got a question. So this application says, well, been said a couple times too, 20 holes. But then there's a 10-year deal. Are you talking 20 holes a year? Is it 20 holes period?
So there are 20 holes. It's a rotating program. Good question. Thank you. So each year up to 20 holes, usually not 10, 15, sometimes less, depending how things go and what the data is. So they'll pick a number, let's pretend 10, it has to be under 20. They're going to bond for 20. It has to be under 20. 20 is the max. So then what they do is, as Mr. Villeneuve said, they plug it, they abandon it. They have DRMS come out and inspect it, that they accept the abandonment and the reclamation. And the abandonment is what's important. And at that point, based on the data, and the analysis after they start looking at things, they can plan for the next campaign, the next year of exploration, and choose 10 or 5 or 8 or whatever holes they need in order to continue, because at the end of the day, they're trying to complete that data set so that they can better understand the deposit as it sits and for the next steps in the development. So to answer your question, it is an X number, less than 20 maximum each year, have to be abandoned. If DRMS says this hole isn't abandoned well enough, then that means they only get 19 next year. And they have to it's a keep rolling.
Okay, thanks.
Following up on that, how can we have a map that shows the future of 20 holes if you're talking about 20 holes a year?
Each year, the location of the holes change with the data collected the previous year. So if we had been fortunate enough to get started in 2023, during the off-season, December 1 to May, the data would have been received, they would have looked at it, they would have proposed 14 hole locations and set them on the map. And then they do the drilling. In the off-season, they collect the data, look at it, I'm guessing that they would probably reduce in number each year as this winds down, I'm assuming. Thank you. Phew, that was a swag. That it would reduce each time, but they don't know the location until after they get the data.
So the map is basically the starting 20.
It's the beginning.
Okay, I do have another question for you. What is the source of the water that you will
There-
need for
yeah, we
this,
met-
and are there agreements in place?
We met with the city for the bulk water, delightful lady there, and she has to register the water truck in order to start the account. And so the water truck comes with the drill rig. So as soon as the drill rig is contracted and pinned down, then their water truck will be driven to the bulk water station, and she will write down those names and all those things that need to happen in order to get that. But we did stop in and meet with her.
Thank you.
Oh, another question, follow up on the holes. So if you drill 20 holes where those blue dots are this year, they may affect these other landowners that are nearby there.
They can only go on the landowners that you have
I
permission
know, but
to-
there's adjacent landowners as well. Okay, now next year, we're not gonna have a public hearing, but you're gonna move down 20 holes and you're gonna affect the bottom part of that, which may affect other adjacent landowners.
We can only put holes in the parcels for which there are land use agreements.
Now, I get that.
I don't understand what you're
I
saying.
get that. You have
They've all
you have
agreed.
this property up here and you've got a neighbor up here that you don't have an agreement with. So this hole may affect this landowner. We're talking about that today. That's these 20 holes at the top. If you can scroll back on that map.
I guess I
20.
don't understand what you mean by effect.
They know about it because they've entered into it.
Like 23, Tony. Page 23. Well, there's one coming up. They know about it if they've lived within, if they're 500 feet from the property boundary, is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
So, and all of the holes will remain in the 734 acre
Yes.
boundary
Okay,
that
go
you're
back,
asking
go back
for.
down to that one will work. So right now, those 20 holes are kind of in the top part of that. There's more to that that's not on that picture, which there are different adjacent landowners down below there.
But regardless of where the holes are, the pink boundary is where the notification was done.
Okay, that's where I was going.
It wasn't from the location
Within
of the hole.
500 feet of that boundary.
500 feet of that boundary was where the notification, the pink boundary.
And obviously, we've gotten emails from folks that aren't within that 500 feet that have concerns too. So they now know about it, but they didn't prior, but that was not your fault nor ours, but because it is a 500-foot deal. Thank you.
Okay.
So since we're on that slide, and I don't know if this is a question for you, Angela, or someone else, but the yellow dots representing all the capped holes that are
Abandoned.
already abandoned. How many are there in that South T-bar area, inside and outside that?
You know,
I was trying to count them, but you know.
I'm sorry, I don't have that number off the top of my head. You know, I didn't count the holes inside the red polygon there. I'm going to guess about 1,200 in this area right here, including the deposit to the south, which is called the picnic tree deposit, but we're really not interested in that one. So in this area, roughly 1,000 to 1,200, something like that.
Okay. And if they're all abandoned, are they abandoned? To what level are they capped, I guess? I keep saying capped, but
They're abandoned pursuant to the regulations of DRMS.
at the time,
Which is just 2008, 2012. It's relatively recent.
Some of this was in the mid-'70s as
Yeah.
well. So whatever the regulations were at that point.
under the Cypress
Correct.
expiration, okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. This time, we will turn to our staff for the staff report. Mr. Victoria.
All right. Good morning, everyone. It's still morning. In front of us, we have Tallahassee Resources Exploration Project, CUP 23-001. Tallahassee Resources has submitted application to conduct mineral exploration activities to further delineate the known uranium deposit and collect data that will guide development of an environmentally responsible mining technique encompassing a boundary of 734 acres. Drilling activity will commence once the application is approved, weather dependent. A drilling season will typically commence in the spring and continue until cold weather and conditions settle into the valley in the fall. Up to 20 holes will be drilled in one exploration season, and all holes will be immediately plugged and abandoned in accordance with Colorado Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety regulations. The location, Tallahassee's mineral interests encompass leases and agreements with surface and mineral owners in the Taylor Ranch, Boyer Ranch, and Hanson Deposit and Picnic Tree Deposit located in the South T-Bar Ranch development. The background is Okapi Resources is an Australian-based company. Tallahassee Resources is the U.S.-based operating unit of Okapi for the Tallahassee Resources Project. Starting in 2019, Okapi began acquiring former Black Range mineral interests in Fremont County associated with the long-recognized and studied uranium deposits in the Tallahassee Creek area. Tallahassee Resources intends to continue the work that Black Range Minerals. This project site previously held CUP permit 08-001 and a modification to the CUP 10-003, which had a CUP boundary covering 8,169 acres. During that time, this site was permitted for 6 to 8 drill rigs with approximately 50 workers and approximately 51 pieces of equipment. The anticipated permit life was 2 to 5 years of peak exploration activity. Per day, they're intending 16 trips per day with trip calculated as going in and leaving. So access one, number of employees, maximum of 4. Standard hours of operation would be daylight hours and up to 6 days a week. However, during drilling operations, they would drill for 24 hours a day until the drilling of the hole is completed. And worst case scenario, they're anticipating a maximum duration of 14 days. It was explained to me that once drilling has commenced, it's too much torque on the equipment to stop and start. So as soon as they start, they're going to continue until they finalize that hole. Their yearly working duration would be spring to fall, weather dependent, no winter month operation. They're requesting a 10-year life of permit. Let's see here. They will be using bulk water, which will be purchased from Canyon City and hauled to the site by a private contractor. For sanitation, they're proposing chemical toilets. For refuse, a strict carry-in, carry-out procedure. Lighting will be used as required once drilling operations have begun. Access to the site is County Road 21 to the South T-Bar Gate. As far as drainage goes, soil and erosion control measures will be required at each drill location, as well as any steep roadway cuts as needed, which aren't anticipated at this time, but just in case. The applicant has, since Planning Commission, the applicant has proposed the solids recovery unit. So for agency comments, staff requested comments from various review agencies. Staff has incorporated comments received to date either in their entirety or in part in the staff report. The Fremont Conservation District, the soil health and erosion, exploration for various minerals have been done in this area already. Where are the reports for past explorations? And their other concern was water quality and riparian habitat conservation. Pollutants from the mining of uranium can contaminate aquatic ecosystems for hundreds of years, threatening downstream communities as well as fish and wildlife. Even small amounts of some pollutants can poison fish, accumulate in the food chain, and cause deformities and reproductive problems for aquatic species. Since the source of water for Fremont County is the Arkansas River, all phases of uranium development, exploration, mining, and milling can pose unique threats to species, ecosystems, and human communities along the river. Communities along the Arkansas River are food-producing agricultural fields which feed humans and animals across the state. And pollutants from this uranium would have a devastating effect on the agricultural communities, from habitat destruction of wildlife to bioaccumulation and irreversible pollution of waters. Today's boom threatens to build upon uranium's legacy of environmental and social harm. The Fremont Conservation District is opposed to the exploration project based on the above statements. Noxious weed and control. It's been recommended that this applicant would follow the integrated weed management plan. FCDOT, this roadway impact sheet is calculated at 1 drill rig operation. If a second drilling rig is brought in, we need to be notified so a roadway impact worksheet can be adjusted for increased traffic. That was their concerns. The Fremont County engineer, all comments were addressed. Fremont County engineer requests to participate in any post-reclamation inspections conducted by DRMS and post-road and stream crossing damage inspections as described by the applicant. The Fremont County Building Department, their comments were a portable chemical toilet may be used if permitted. Fire protection plan, everything appeared sufficient. Colorado Parks and Wildlife, as this property is located in the wintering range of elk, mule deer, and antelope, wildlife impacts could be minimized by applying seasonal timing limitations on mining activity. The riparian areas of the site are extremely valuable to wildlife. CPW recommends following best management practices for working in these areas. Public comments, I think we fielded one phone call on Thursday, and then, Monday, we received probably 3 or 4 phone calls in my office, and this morning I received 2 emails, and since we've been in a meeting, I received a 3rd from the public that had concerns. So the emails I have are in the packet, or BOCC agenda packet for you guys to review. It seems a concern is from folks outside of the 500-foot notification area being made aware of this project later on. So while the applicant and the county met the requirements in our regulations, the rest of the folks in the area weren't made aware of this project until just recently. So they feel that there's a time constraint on them learning about this. Waivers, landscaping plan, lighting plan, utility plan, and drainage plan. So at this time, my recommendation, I have spoken with the Fremont Conservation District regarding the specifics of this project and provided access to records. I have also spoken with the applicant and gave them the ability to address any concerns. Having made reasonable efforts to address any concerns, I have found the application is in compliance with the requirements of the Fremont County zoning resolution. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit with the following contingencies and conditions. For contingencies, in addition to the following contingencies shall be provided to the department within 6 months after final approval by this board, would be the permitting of chemical toilets. And the conditions would be that the Fremont County engineer participate in any post-reclamation inspections conducted by the DRMS and post-road and stream crossing damage inspections as described by the applicant, and that the Fremont County Department of Transportation be notified of any changes that impact the roadway use for reevaluation. This project did get presented to the Planning Commission, and their recommendation was for approval with the same conditions and contingencies and waivers that I just read.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Victoria. Any questions for him?
I apologize, I may have one. Ask my question first. Talking about the number of holes, and having just heard from the applicant that it would be a maximum of 20 holes per year, are we capping the number of holes that would be permitted under this during the life of the permit?
That is a fantastic question. Based off of the applicant's statement, It seems that their permitting would only allow for a maximum of 20 per year for that 10-year duration. Having heard that, I think it would be reasonable before the next drilling campaign that have the applicant provide the map of their anticipated next series of holes. I think that would be beneficial for us. We were that they can get 20 holes that can map what their state or permitting, state permitting allows for. So that way we can make sure that we're falling in line with the state recommendations as well.
Is the invitation state?
Yes.
License? 20%?
Yep, because that's the bond.
Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
Good.
Just one clarification regarding community outreach. So a year ago, September, was the first meeting in South T-Bar. There was a meeting that Tallahassee organized at the Abbey. And then this summer, either late May or early June, there was a POA meeting for the South T-Bar. And Mr. Brown was invited to speak to this, to everybody in attendance at that meeting. And he shared the progress in the upcoming application and the progress on the state. So there were 2 outreaches for South T-Bar individuals, okay, property holders. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Victoria?
No.
Okay.
Not at this time.
At this time, we do have an opportunity for public comment. We do have a list here of folks who have signed up, and I'll take those in order.
Mr. Chair, we need
Yes.
to open the public hearing officially.
You opened it.
Did that at the very beginning.
We
You opened
don't,
it first thing.
Very
okay,
first thing.
we don't have a time written down over here.
Open public hearing, 10:19.
10:19, yeah.
Oh, your microphone is on.
10:19 was the
Thank you.
time we opened the public hearing. All right, ma'am, I saw you raise your hand. If you've signed up.
Oh, I was just gonna, with regards to the presentation that, how do you say it, OPIC?
Well, okay, we're not going to do this.
No, I was just gonna say that,
We,
those that weren't able to attend and requested it, it has been provided to us.
okay, our first person on our list is Craig Bowe. Is that Bow or Bowe? Bowe.
Yeah, thank you. Craig Bowe, I'm a Beulah resident and have been for the last 17 years. Certified professional geologist, and I've been continuously practicing now for north of 40 years. I'm here at Tim Brown's behest, just to give a view as another professional geologist, specifically to the general notion of the proposed program and whether it's a sensible and realistic one from my perspective. Full disclosure, I'm not an employee of BOCC. I'm not a consultant to them. I'm not a shareholder of them. So this is completely arm's length. A couple of comments. Just reinforcing, I think, 3 things that I've heard today. The first one, and the obvious driver here, is nuclear power is back, not only in this country, but worldwide, back. That's driving a rise in uranium prices, and it's going to drive an increased demand for uranium. And I think, personally, here to stay. And it is a major change, watershed in non-fossil fuel power and energy generation. So I think that's point number 1. And you guys are sitting on a large and very, very valuable, potentially very, very valuable uranium resource here, okay? Rising price, rising market, rising demand, and you have a significant asset. at your command there. I think that Cypress did most of their work here in the 1970s. That's my career length, right? 40 plus years. When they did this work, I was a summer student, a graduate student working for Anaconda Uranium Division in Salt Lake. So that's back a ways, right? And it's completely reasonable to me and proportionate to me that these guys would want to go back and get some more material after all these years, spaced carefully through the deposit with the idea of applying new technology, new rock mechanic thinking, new metallurgical thinking, really to try to upgrade and refine the picture that they have of this deposit without, fortunately, having to re-drill 2,200 drill holes. From my perspective, that is a justifiable, reasonable proposal to you folks. And my last comment simply is, I hope you consider it seriously, not only for the value that the program has in the short term, but the optionality it may give you going down the road here a few years as we see how this ballet with nuclear power plays out. And that, you know, Tim Brown can speak poetically about how important Cripple Creek has been to Teller County. It gives you some optionality if you allow this limited program to go forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Next on the list is Tim Morse.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm also, I'm Tim Morse. I'm on the Fremont Conservation District, a board member there. And I appreciate you reading the note into the minutes. But I'm also a resident off Tallahassee Road. And I guess since you've already mentioned the letter, I don't need to mention that anymore. But I do have some concerns as a resident in that area. I didn't know much about uranium mining until it came in front of the board. So I had to do a little bit of homework on what does that entail. And everything that I looked up wasn't very positive for the impacts to the environment, to people, the animals. So I would just ask you, before you take a vote, to consider the impact to the citizens. I mean, as you saw in their presentation, they had spill containment kits. Obviously, the accidents happen. If an accident happened on this scale, it could be detrimental to our environment, and especially the people that live in that environment, which I am one. So just risk versus reward. Risk towards the citizens versus reward for an Australian mining company. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And not a reflection on Mr. Bowe or Mr. Morse, because they handled themselves perfectly. But just a reminder for all future that are speaking, just address the board. And if there's any questions, address the board with those questions. And hopefully, if they have answers, we'll get answers. But thank you both for how you did that. And that's how we like to see it. So next on the list is Mr. Larry Harkins.
Good morning. My name is Larry Harkins. I've lived here in Canyon City for the past 21 plus years with my family. My kids grew up here. I'm coming today to speak in support of the proposed drill holes for this project. I'm a registered professional mining engineer, over 50 years out in the mud and the blood. And so I've seen a number of these projects come together, been involved with them. And I was introduced to this project by Angela. We were talking one day and she asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, I'm retired. She said, well, it's kind of a neat project up Tallahassee. So I got interested in it. And I actually went to the site with Tim and Jim in June and looked at the proposed area. was very impressed with reclamation. I've seen reclamation all over the world, projects I've worked on, and the reclamation that was done there by the previous people was done very well. As an engineer being involved with a number of projects, you ask three questions. If you came forward with a project, you'd say, all right, is there something there? Can you produce it? Can you sell it? The 2,100 plus drill holes in that area have defined the deposit. BOCC is at a point right now in their program where they need to get additional information to go forward to define, is it producible? Can we produce this material? Which would answer that second question. So very important for them. The need for this material is growing, as everyone has said. You know, approximately 60% of our energy is still fossil fuel in this country. With the desire to shut down the carbon emissions, uranium is going to play a major role in the future of our energy. As I speak, I looked this up this morning, there are approximately 256 new babies born every minute. So since I've been talking, there have been over 500 new babies come forward. Every one of those is going to require food, shelter, clothing. And so the energy requirement in our world is going to continue to domino. I speak in support of this project because I looked at their application. I feel that they've done their homework, and I feel it would be prudent for the commission to consider giving them permission to do these drill holes. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Anything?
No questions, thank you.
Thanks
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
Next, Joyce, you're going to have to help me with your last name. Almo Hundro.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning.
I'm a resident. One of the things that I think that you may not be aware of, but you probably are, is that the South T-Bar, where the drill sites take place and the road that goes in there, it's not just, that's not the only development that's back there. So there's Hall Gulch, there's Fremont Properties, there's Elkview. So they are not part of the South T-Bar, but they use those roads in there. And they're scattered throughout there, and many of those properties border where these holes are going to go in. And my property, I've got one parcel that is part of the South T-Bar and one that is not. It's what they call an adjacent property. And I just did not realize the full scope of this and how it would affect me. The South T-Bar board, which I've just found out, most of them benefit financially from this. They have shares or however it's set up in this development, this mining thing. Not everyone on the South T-Bar does, nor do the adjacent property owners. They were not allowed to buy into that way back when that took place. I believe that was 2007, but I'm not sure. So not everyone benefits from this, but everyone will be affected by this. And some of the things that I was not aware of that I really would ask for some more time to understand what's going on. I may not, everything may be fine, but I don't know. So what we were told by information from the board is that all the mining that would be done, if it's ever done, would be through this ablation process where they just go down, suck up the stuff, and come back out. We had a conference call last night with a judge who's into this kind of thing, and she told us that the ablation isn't even approved yet. It's an experimental thing, and that most likely, because it's more expensive and because it hadn't been approved yet, they would probably do the open pit mining thing. I also just heard, and I can't confirm that all this is true, but perhaps you all know, when they were doing the uranium mining before, it was open. And that is now a super fun site where they're proposing to go in and do this. And I mean, that's truly distressing. Also, I didn't know, and I don't even know how to confirm yet, if this is the case, that they could have up to 24 truckloads a day going in and out, and that they can operate 24/7. We moved out of the city to go out there where it's peaceful and quiet and I can enjoy the dark skies, and they're talking about the lights and everything out there. And also, I support myself and my husband, who's a disabled Vietnam veteran, through our vacation rental there. Well, if they're only there May through November, that's the 7 months of, peak tourist season and when we make our money. So if you've got all that mining equipment going 24/7 with the lights down there, I'm pretty sure that'll take us out. So I know I'm just one person, but I also know that many of my neighbors didn't know about this. And also the fact that when we were told by the board in the presentations that, this was going to be ablation, this, everything to kind of calm us down, and I wasn't worried about it at all. But now that I've found out, or I think I've found out, that not all, but most of the board members receive financial compensation, and that was not disclosed to us. So I'm not sure where I stand, and I'm not sure that I can give really valid comments because I don't know if these things are true or not. But it sure is going to have a big effect on us and, and my neighbors around there that didn't know about this. So I'm asking if we could please have some more time to look at this and figure out how we can work through this. I understand these people have their mining rights, but I'm also quite shocked because in the South T-Bar covenants, it says that absolutely no mining is allowed, no commercial operations are allowed, and that nothing can be done that increases that road traffic. And my goodness, if you've got all these truckloads of stuff and the mining equipment and the lights going 24/7, I mean, that's against everything that's in those covenants that were supposed to protect us. So I just don't understand this at all. And I would really ask if it's at all possible to give us a little more time to look at this and see if this is, maybe it's okay, but I just don't know. So I appreciate you all listening to me, and this is a heavy decision for all of you, and thank you so much for looking after us. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, can I say something right quick? Just to kind of address Joyce. Right now, we're only talking about exploration and not mining. Now, I know exploration could lead to mining, which is going to be a much bigger decision and a bigger discussion. But right now, it's just exploration.
And probably a longer day when that.
Yeah, it'll probably be a real long day if it ever comes to the mining part of it. And then we'll get into the ways that they may possibly mine it and all that. Right now, that is not what we're looking at. It's simply boring those holes for exploration.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah, come back up here.
But what about all the lights and the road traffic and they said they could operate 24 hours a day and all that road traffic coming down, that's going to happen with this. And that's going to affect all of us that live there. And we're like, and the adjacent properties, which were not represented at all, my son has one that he bought. And he looks down on that, where they're going to do that. He looks down on that mine.
So, as part of the public hearing, the proponents are probably taking notes as we speak on concerns.
Right.
And we'll provide them an opportunity to address some of those concerns.
Okay.
Before the end of the day.
Yeah, and we would like to, speak with the Okapi people personally now that this stuff has come to light for us and see if, you can't believe what everybody says and people get upset and, I don't know. So I'd just like to know what's really the truth of it, and I would just like some more time, please, to sort this out.
Understood.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is John Graham.
Thank you.
Hello.
That was my mom, so she pretty emotional. I'm not sure I could speak, but this is our home, and we've spent a lot of time working on it. I'm building a home. It's a unique home. It's a hobbit home. We're very creative, and we love the land. And seeing my mom cry up there, it kind of gets to me. I'm a martial artist, so I'm usually a tough guy, but that kind of got to me. My biggest concern about the drilling is the lights and the pollution it may have in the air. I didn't hear anyone talk about mitigation of the air. Like, that's where everyone drives through, where those proposed drilling holes are. So are we testing the air? Are we testing the water? Again, I kind of came late to this game. If you pull up the map there, my property is Fremont 160, and it is directly below what you put as L. And so I wasn't notified about this through letters. And so I got another letter from another neighbor shared a letter that said that, this was occurring. So, but they have reached out. They have reached out and tried to talk about what they're doing. I just didn't know what it's going to be now. So, again, I would ask for more time to evaluate and to continue to look at this matter. And I apologize for all the emotional content there. So, thank you.
It's all good.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Skip Blades.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
Morning, I think, yep.
Well, I actually prepared some words just so I made sure I got through everything that I really wanted to get through. There'll be some repeat, but I'm just going to call it reinforcement of some facts that are going around. So, my wife and I are property owners within South T-Bar. We actually bought a couple of more quote-unquote lots in the neighborhood of Elkview that's right there in that area and part of South T-Bar. I'm a business owner. I've been in the software industry and implemented business systems for medium-sized companies. We actually specialized in doing junior mines as well. So I will come from at least a place of knowledge with understanding what junior mines are, how they operate as public companies, and the process of exploration, development, production, et cetera. So I have a fairly good understanding of that. So I'm commenting on the request by OCAPI for the conditional use permit to encourage Fremont County Commissioners to reject the application. We decided to purchase land in South T-Bar about 4 years ago for its beauty and diverse wildlife and quiet seclusion. The uranium drilling proposed by OCAPI clearly threatens all of that to really all of the 100+ owners within South T-Bar. It's a gated community. I don't know which of you have actually been out there, but I explain it to my friends, it's like a subdivision. I mean, if you look at a map, you've got plots of land just like a subdivision, whether it's half-acre plots or in this case 35 to 40-acre plots. It's a residential community. It's a gated community. It's got a single point of entrance in South T-Bar. Their plans are those 20 holes that they've proposed are right there on the main thoroughfare, right as you come through in the single entrance, right into the residential area, and it's right on the middle fork of the Tallahassee. It's within a few yards of the middle fork of the Tallahassee Creek and Feared Creek. These are tributaries that converge into Tallahassee Creek that flows directly into the Arkansas River, which I'm sure you're well aware of. There's a heightened risk of the water contamination. I mean, everything is based upon all this prevention to avoid something from happening, right? But what the reality is that things do happen. Right? So there's a heightened risk of the water contamination, that water source that feeds Canyon City, Pueblo, and in reality, the state of Kansas. I would think Fremont County and the state of Colorado would consider the risk to the Arkansas River compact between Colorado and Kansas. Any kind of contamination or our ability to provide them water could be millions of dollars of fines. So I think that should be a strong consideration. And as they have pointed out, right, there's been, I mean, I don't know what the number was, right? I heard 1,200, 2,000, how many holes they've dug out there, right? And even up to 2012, right? And this is the exploration phase, right? And again, my experience tells me in dealing with junior mines, they have to do this, right? They have to go through the exploration because they have investors as a public company. And they have to tell these recent investors, oh, we've gone and we've dug these holes, and now look what we got, buy our stock. That's what this is all about. It's 100% what it's all about, right? I've talked to uranium consultants that said the ability to get that, the reason it hasn't been mined before is because it's not easy to get out, right? And it's all about the techniques of how they can get it out. And apparently it's going to be very difficult to actually get it out. And what I've heard is that the stock price has to get up to, or the price of uranium has to get to like $150 for even it to make sense. So why are we doing this, right? We're doing it to, I believe, to pump up their stock price. I think we should not get caught up in this, belief it'll never happen, right? It did happen at Cotter Mill Superfund, and I'm sure you're very well aware of that. And now that Cotter Mill is defunct and we're stuck with taxpayers having to pay for that, I mean, that's, again, I get, and they've done a good job of all the prevention things, but it can happen, and it has happened. The other thing I want to hit on just a little bit is, so they show the map, and it shows that, look at all these people that have agreed to do this, right? They have the mineral rights to do it. And as been pointed out, in roughly 2007, a guy named Tom Poole, I believe was his name, came in and he knew that was a big deposit, and he bought a bunch of land in there. He bought several lots. And then he went to organize all those people that had those mineral rights at that time. And he created an LLC, created one organization to get them to vote on this, to make this whole process a whole lot easier. What's happened is there's been turnover. So now if you really look at that map that they have that shows all those people that have agreed to it, the people that have agreed to it are the people that are there to profit off of it and get the mineral rights, right? And get the lease payments for it, right? So they're all quiet. There's like this whole thing going on where, and I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything of holding information. I personally, honestly haven't seen that, right? I don't think that's accurate. But I would say is that there's a lot of people in South T-Bar that are landowners. Me, I don't have my mineral rights, right? And that map is at least 50, if not more, % of the people within South T-Bar and the adjacent areas do not have their mineral rights. So it's not like everybody in that area is all agreeing to this. There's a lot of people that don't even have a clue this is going on. And that's what you're hearing from people that actually live there that don't understand this. So there's got to be an awareness and some communication on this for us all to really understand what's going on and really have a voice. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is Ronnie Reisenberg? Yes.
It's Ronette. My friends call me Ronnie.
Ronnie, okay.
Good morning.
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 So I was one of the calls to Dan. I met Dan yesterday, so hi. And my husband emailed this morning. He's one of the emailers. So can I read you what my husband emailed? So here's a copy. It's actually page 1 is mine. And he included all the boards and commissioners on that email, so you guys got it too. But let me read you what, and just a little bit of background for us. We're the Reisenbergs. We've lived in Colorado since '99. I'm a military brat. My dad was a lifer, so I'm an Air Force brat, good and true. And my husband, after 9/11, came home at age 36 and decided he was going in the Navy. I'm like, you got to go if they say go. And he did. He's been deployed and stuff, so my children have got to grow up being military kids too, but they got to live here. So just a little bit behind us. We're a very strong military family. My husband's name is James Paul. He goes by Paul. Mr. Victoria and BOCC. I'm a property owner within the South T-Bar Ranch. We actually are Elkview, so we're an adjacent property. I would like to request tabling or postponing any decision regarding Tallahassee LLC's uranium exploration project. My wife and I purchased our lot exactly 4 years ago this week. We have put considerable sweat equity and financial commitment into developing 148 Elkview Court, which is lot 9. Excuse me, I'm kind of. We have an orchard, an apiary, and started construction on our production building. In 2005, we will be developing our house. With the small things we have done so far, we are concerned about the collateral effects of the proposed around-the-clock exploration project. The email below is the first time we've heard about the project. We still live in Aurora and do get out to the branch every weekend. We missed coming up last weekend due to the U.S. Navy Reserve commitments. The email below, dated only 3 days ago, is the first notice we received. My request for postponement is to allow us and our neighbors time to better understand the total impact of the project, even though our property might not be in the exact area of the exploration effort. I like to have time to know if their process will affect my water. Will the traffic disrupt the bees? Will Triple B Ranch opt out to cancel their grazing lease with South T-Bar, possibly impacting our agricultural zoning? There's plenty of more questions I could come up with in terms of financial and environmental concerns. Thank you for listening and considering my request. So that's what my husband came up with. I was given the opportunity to make some calls yesterday and do a little bit of searching. I also looked at the application for Fremont County, and I looked at the application for, is it National NDR? With the state application?
Division of Mining Reclamation.
Yeah, and so I looked at both of those applications, and then the comments from the company today, their proposal's a little bit different than both applications. So I haven't seen their actual work summary is not been provided. So what I read was 20 trips a day, and that would be a 24-hour period. So now it's 16 trips in that 24-hour period. Is that correct?
Please address.
Oh, is that correct? 16 trips in a 24-hour period.
We'll have them confirm or.
Okay, all right, so that's that. There were complaints to the building department that my 30 hives that I brought out this year for my apiary were gonna have transportation impacts to our South T-Bar. 30 hives, I've had them out there, I've not had any complaints, bees haven't bothered anybody, I'm not selling honey off my property, but the complaints of me bringing an apiary out and planting my orchard was gonna have transportation issues out there. I was gonna cause issues. It hasn't happened, but nobody seems to see a problem with 20 trips, 16 trips, any trips for whatever. I don't know if it's gonna be 9 months, I don't know if it's gonna be 3 months. Can you guys put up that map you had of where the area is? Could I show you where I live? I think you passed it. Did you pass it? No, there you go. No? Where you had, where everybody is? I'm just outside of your 500 feet.
Whoa. Go back. You keep going, whoa. Back again. Right there.
Right there.
So you guys have that 500 feet. So you, okay, you come in. So if I'm looking at this right, this is, no, where's Walkerway, guys?
You're thinking about it, right?
Was this Walkerway right here? No.
That's Tallahassee Trail, go up and over.
That's Tallahassee.
Okay,
Yeah, there,
so
that's Walkerway.
Okay, so that point right, yeah, up here? Yeah, so my property
red
is
thing on
just
the
off the tree up there. So I'm that first lot 9 right off of, so I have Deer Creek behind me, and I have Tallahassee Creek over on the other side. I have 30 hives. Bees at a minimum will go 3 miles. So I'm right off of the Perez, I don't know what the delineation, so Perez is across, he's in your area. The Sicilians are right next to me, they're on your guys' 500s. I don't know what the DG, I don't know what less, but they're right up against, I'm next in line. Bees will go at a minimum 300 feet, or 3 miles, minimum 3 miles. My neighbors have told me, they're all excited. My bees have been back to the Britons. My bees have been over to the, I don't know Alan's name, Alan's last name, the English guy? Atkinson's. my bees are doing what they do. I have 30 hives. They're doing great. They're expanding. We're going to have a great winter. I've already talked to DWR. They're the ones who gave me the electric fence. I got a grant from them, so I'm protected from bears. There's going to be 2 more systems coming because in the spring, in May, I will be splitting, and I will probably have 90 hives, so I'll have 2 more locations. So these guys are going to need to wear bee suits because each hive contains, at a minimum, 30,000 bees. And they will be going to the water, and they use the water sources that are there. And the noise at night is going to disrupt them. We're going to have swarming. This is just me just telling you these are potentials. We're going to have angry bees. So I don't know what else it's going to disrupt because I haven't been able to look at anything else. I do know that I was able to look up a couple different things that they need to be in good standing, and I don't really know what the name is. I don't know if it's Tallahassee Exploration LLC, Tallahassee LLC, because I found on the state page, I found all of those names, but none of them are in good standing. So I don't, and that's one of the things the state application set requires, and that's not happened yet, and they're going to deny their application on September 9th, I think, if that's not done. The other thing I was able to look up is this all started in 2008. In 2013, I think, because of the type of mining and where the regulations were a little questionable, I found some articles, and there was a gentleman by the name of Lee Alder, and he was working with Tallahassee, it's TAC, Tallahassee Area Community Group, and he provided information about, please help me pronounce if this does go to mining, what is the processing, ablation? So back then it was not approved. Has that technology been approved since then?
Can you
Oh, sorry.
continue to address us up here?
Has that technology been approved?
It's
not what
it's
we're
irrelevant
talking
to
about.
this.
Okay, but at that time, the NRCS denied all permits and everything was denied and stopped then. And so I've not been able to find anything else I haven't had the time to look into it to see. And then I was trying to reach Mr. Alder, and I found out last night that he's passed. So I'm going to have to, our expert's no longer with us. And
I didn't know that either.
yeah, I just found out that he passed earlier this year. So that's a big, but he provided information, and I guess there are some people, I found this out from residents in Guffey because I joined the Guffey Bee Club. That's the only bee club around here. So anyhow, so there's the applications. I've got some questions if that's going to get passed or not. I did find out information about my own deed does not say anything about mineral rights, and I didn't know I needed to worry about the top dirt and the bottom dirt underneath my fields. So I did not do any due diligence. I did due diligence on water rights, but I didn't do it on dirt. I found out that there is a potential that the South T-Bar POA owns 51% of the mineral rights under my property, and the South T-Bar Mineral LLC owns 49% of the mineral rights under my property. And then when I looked into it, I found that there are members on both of those boards.
Ronnie, I'm sorry to interrupt you. You've kind of brought this up already, and
Yeah,
I've let you speak for a lot longer than everybody else. And
but anyhow, I'm really disturbed. My husband and I are disturbed. I just went upstairs and got my permit for this is my second high tunnel. I got a grant from NRCS. It's a 30 by 70. I've got 2 of them. I've applied for a community supported agricultural. I applied for a nonprofit for a food bank to support veterans down here in Canyon City. I might not be able to grow food. I have a grant for a business license and marketing. I need to know what kind of name I'm marketing. You know, I would have liked to brought people honey and stuff. I don't know if anybody's going to want to buy my stuff. I have 5 stores that are going to carry my honey right now. I'm doing displays to put my honey in. I just bottled everything I could. I don't want to make people sick. We found South T-Bar, and we loved it. And that's all I thought I was doing, was moving somewhere where I could live and enjoy the people that I've met out there, and live there and be happy. And everybody we've met in Canyon City we love, and we want to be part of Fremont County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Donnie Angel.
Hello.
Good morning.
Morning.
Afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon. It
It
is. As, may I give you?
I'll take it.
As a concerned citizen and former board member of TAC, I respectfully request answers to the following questions. Where can I assess the environmental impact statement that I assume was performed in order to get a drilling permit from DRMS? And some of these things, since I've obviously typed these, were made before the presentation today, so some aren't quite, I guess, pertinent right now. Okapi Resources website claims they have executed land and road access agreements with landowners at the project. In order to drill anywhere in the Tallahassee area, however, they will be traveling on Fremont County Road 2. County Road 2 is the only ingress to and egress from the area. And I was asking, how have they informed, or have they informed all residents who travel this road to the additional traffic, which I take from today they have not. And I am one, since I do not live in South T-Bar, I was not informed of any of this until recently. The CUP application includes, according to Okapi Resources website, the rolling 20 active drill sites that will be abandoned and reclaimed, as discussed today. The DRMS permit, valid until December 2027, allows for up to 60 holes. Okapi represents itself as a, quote, new leader in North American carbon-free nuclear energy. If their drill program process is similar to borehole mining, then I would question where they get the energy for their drilling rigs or to run the diesel generator, which would power any high-pressure water jets. Surely not from a carbon-free source like solar or wind power. Colorado has been experiencing drought conditions for many consecutive years now. It takes thousands and thousands of gallons of water simply to explore for uranium. The water they will use will be taken out of the system, so I thought, but apparently, and I appreciate Commissioner Bell asking where that water would come from. However, this is a growing residential population, and I realize we're not discussing this today, but when eventually their exploration leads to extraction, how will they account for the millions of gallons of water consumed, as they probably won't be trucking in those quantities. An aquifer can be contaminated by just one test drill hole. When this occurs and my water becomes unusable because of its contamination, who will pay me for a cistern, a county permit for that cistern, trips to Canyon City to get water, and for the water itself? Furthermore, who will pay for testing of residents' well water? Today's agenda, as has been read today, even states Okapi's intent is to, quote, delineate the known uranium deposit and collect data that will guide development of an environmentally responsible mining technique. I would question what technique that would be. Borehole mining, ablation, ISL are far from environmentally responsible in regards to groundwater safety. These may be considered the least environmentally detrimental, but then you don't live in the Tallahassee area and depend on well water for your family, pets, and livestock. I would also question, and this is not in my notes until now, is that SRU a proven technique? Today's presentation seemed to indicate it is a novel approach Okapi expects to be a godsend to the environment. Mining laws are unfortunately weighted in favor of industry. Foreign companies such as Okapi come in, get our mineral wealth, and leave the state with cleanup costs. Businesses incorporate themselves as quote-unquote limited for the primary reason of limiting their liability to the capital they invested. Okapi Resources Limited, with their acquisition of Tallahassee Resources Proprietary Limited 2 years ago, will likely follow suit after they have mined all the deposits they can. When they have drilled their exploratory holes, eventually proceeded to uranium extraction, used up clean water and left contaminated water behind, added traffic and noise to gravel roads, it is the community that will be the one to suffer. What assurance do we have as residents and as state taxpayers that we will not be footing Okapi's cleanup bill in years to come? During the proposed drilling phase, as well as the anticipated extraction phase by Okapi, what plans does Okapi have in place to, 1, prevent any discharge to surface water, 2, prevent surface runoff from disturbed areas, and for 3, controlling any dust from construction activities at the site, as well as 4, emissions, including radon? Are monitoring wells planned for drilling prior to their exploration drilling? If not, what scientifically reliable background data has Okapi provided you with? In today's presentation, they're talking about reclamation and showing beautiful pictures of grass and areas that look like they're untainted. And they talk about drilling or plugging the drill holes. But if the research that I've done is even half accurate, then when they're drilling these holes, they're going through the aquifer. And once you disturb the aquifer, as other people have pointed out, there's obviously a great chance of contamination. And the half-life of uranium is about 1,000 generations. There's no way to protect that far into the future, and for Okapi to make environmental claims to the opposite is irresponsible. As of today, or yesterday Australian time, uranium stock was up 8.3%. And I do miss Lee Alter, because he kept up with all of this. How low would the price have to fall before Okapi's profits wouldn't compensate for market decline? In addition to County Roads 2 and 21, what other roads and thus communities will be impacted by these activities? Will Okapi be paying bridge and road fees? And then last but not least, please explain and give examples of how they plan to work, quote, closely with Fremont County as they undertake their exploration and development programs at the Tallahassee Uranium Project, unquote. I appreciate the opportunity to speak at today's hearing and strenuously oppose this requested conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donnie. Next, we have, is it Mary Jane Sisson?
Good morning.
Hello.
Hi.
Morning.
You also received an email from me this morning. If it went through, my internet was a little sketchy, and I also placed a phone call yesterday to try and get some information. On behalf of my husband David and I want to thank y'all for having this forum so that we can ask the questions that we have. The biggest thing that we want to bring up today is time. If there's any way possible that more time can be given for those of us who are just finding out. We purchased our property. We live at 1377 South Tallahassee Trail, Lot 90. We purchased in June of this year. And so I received the letter, I think from the zoning people, I believe, probably was sent to Louisiana, probably maybe 10, 12 days ago, and you could have knocked me over with a feather, because it was our understanding that this type of thing didn't exist in South T-Bar with regard to mining, which I know we're not talking about mining, we're talking about drilling, but I assume drilling is going to lead to mining, so we were really surprised, and so I've tried to do a crash course on all of this minerals and mining and everything, and it's like cramming for an exam. There's a lot here to try and understand. And that being said, that's why we'd like to ask for time. We'd like to ask some questions of Okapi, Tallahassee LLC. We would like to understand how it's going to impact the water quality in the soil. And I know that they've got plans, and they've answered some of that today. And yes, I prepared this before they gave their presentation. I'd also like to know how it's going to possibly affect our property values. And we would like to be able to have the time to get a baseline well test. I mean, everything happens perfectly until life happens and it doesn't. And so we would like to have that information as well. We'd like to be able to work all together, and I would like to work with everyone. I'm afraid this is going to become an adversarial process for our South T-Bar Ranch, and I hate that almost as much as the possibility of environmental problems. But we just need more time to gather more information and ask more questions. You just can't do that in 10 to 14 days. And so I would just respectfully ask if we could just have more time before you all make your decision. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Wolf.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Kim Wolf, and I am a property owner at South T-Bar Ranch. My husband and I bought our property there 20 years ago this year. He and I have both served on the board of South T-Bar Property Owners Association, and I am also a manager on the board of directors of STB Minerals LLC, which Mr. Lake referenced. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the mineral rights ownership, because I've been part of that process since the early days. Clearly there's misunderstanding on a variety of people's parts about who owns the mineral rights and who has the opportunity to say what happens on the ranch. But I would like to speak in favor of granting the conditional use permit for Tallahassee Project and Okapi today. I think history has demonstrated that the demand for this uranium in this deposit is not going to go away. It started 50 years ago. It has not been mined yet. People are still looking for the appropriate time, the appropriate method to make it both beneficial for South T-Bar, for the United States, for all the stakeholders in a uranium mine. And I think that, although I'm not an industry expert, I think I've watched this presentation or some version of it about 5 times in the last 15 years. I was there for the Black Range exploration. I think if you visited the ranch today, you would not be able to tell that anything had happened. The Cypress process has left some scars on the land, but I believe that Okapi will be a good steward of the land. Having seen this presentation so many times, we trust their process, we trust their ethics, and frankly, I think that they are the only company who may have the financial capability to see this project through, and rather than kick the ball down the road 10 years to some other players potentially, if we don't make it possible for Okapi to do this, we'll be dealing with people down the road who we may not have the same level of confidence in. So again, I would ask you to approve this. Let them move forward with the explanation. As, thank you, you've mentioned several times, we are not mining yet. There are a lot more hurdles to cross between now and the time that would happen. We have plenty of time to consider the actual process, ablation, whatever. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. John Barnhart.
He left.
Oh, okay. We have one more, John Hamrick.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I'm not here to speak for or against this project. I'm here as a private citizen. I do want to share with you a little bit of my professional background. I have been working in the uranium industry since 1985. Been responsible for water quality monitoring networks, taking water quality samples, analyzing the samples, and interpreting the data. and in addition, I've also been qualified to give expert testimony on the Atomic Energy Act in a court of law. What I wanted to react to was the Fremont County Department of Public Health and Environment's kind of gloom and doom and end of the world statement about the effect that uranium could have on a river system. And I'd like to remind you that at one point there were many uranium mills here in Colorado on the river system that directly discharged their effluents to the river system, and that the consequences discussed in the Fremont County Department of Public Health and Environment statement have not occurred and did not occur, and so I would just offer that context. Although those statements by the Department of Health here are outside the purview, I believe, of this hearing, I just wanted to give you some context. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't ever see those comments. Are you, John? The public health made no comments like that. Are you referring to the Conservation District? Fremont County Conservation District. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
The health department didn't make those. You
Yeah.
had me thumbing through this 330 pages trying to find it.
You saw all the puzzled looks up here. Okay, thank you. We are at the end of our list of those that would like to speak. I think, given the time, and we have a lot of folks up here that have been sitting here and out there for quite a while, we are going to take a 10-minute recess, I think we're going to come back to you guys when we come back and maybe address some of the things that were brought up in the public comments and go from there. But for right now, we'll be back at 12:31 to start back. session. Thank you. Call this meeting back to order, and we will continue, maybe with some, if you have any, there we go, thank you.
Well, thanks.
Just if you want to address
Some of those questions.
Whatever issues.
questions or issues or whatever, yeah.
Perfect. Obviously, appreciate the opportunity to get up here again. I'm just going to sort of reiterate our case and some of the basic principles of what we're coming forward here in the application. But then Tim and Jim are going to come up and present to the Commissioner some of the facts and around some of the answers to the questions proposed earlier. But from my point of view, nuclear is going to become incredibly important. I know I've said it previously. I think it's really important to say again, this is a real industry that provides 20% of America's power, 50% of its renewable energy. This industry isn't going away. It's actually increasing by importance day by day. We're asking for a permit. We're going to get a state permit. That's the truth. That's the laws we're going to be abiding by. We're going to be putting down a bond with the state, which covers rehabilitation. We have a team that knows what it's doing. They're extremely experienced. Those grey hairs are there for a reason. And that's the matter of the facts. This is an exploration permit. Any talk about mining, ablation, any of those buzzwords are just so far down the track, it's actually not relevant at all to these conversations. We are seeking an exploration permit. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Brown again. First, I'd like to thank all the people for making comments and raising these issues that we hope we can address here. I'll answer several of them here, as many as I can in a short amount of time. Several of them were duplicates. And I might bounce around a little bit getting to those answers, but I just want to touch base on their concerns. Just regarding the monitor wells, if anybody's interested, we could add additional monitor wells and test their water before we do anything. We'd be happy to do that. Please give us a call. Give me a call. Contact information is on the presentation, so we'd be happy to do that. The traffic going in and out is going to be dominated by pickup trucks. We'll mob equipment in at the start of the program. We'll mob it out. And again, I just want to clarify that even though we've got a drilling season, this program is only going to take about 2 months to start and finish. So we're going to be there for a relatively small amount of time in the nicer weather, if you will. And several comments were made about lights, air quality, and water quality testing. I think we've addressed the water quality testing. Happy to do it for more people if they want. Lights will be downcast. Air quality is not a problem around the drill when it's running because that's using water to keep the dust down. And if there's any water on the road, we could ask our water truck driver to spray the road a little bit too to help keep dust down. But I'd like to also note that we're a small portion of the total number of vehicles that run up and down those roads. I'd like to make that as well. You know, and I think history is one of our guides here in that there's been a lot of work done in this district for many, many years, and they've done a good job. We've talked about reclamation and water quality already, and we plan to do it better than our predecessors did. We're going to take it forward and do a better job there. There was questions raised about our company name. We are LLC in good standing with the state of Delaware. That's where Tallahassee LLC was incorporated. It came up in our permit process with DRMS that we need to be qualified to work in the state of Colorado. I should get the email any day now, any minute now, as we've gone through that process. We've solved that condition with the state of Colorado. We will have to change our name from Tallahassee LLC to Tallahassee Resources, but we're going to check that box here shortly as well. Another comment was about a question about an environmental impact statement. That is certainly not needed for this level of exploration work. Should it ever become a mine, certainly that's part of the process, but it's not needed for this. And then the SRU, those are growing in importance with exploration projects. I talked to several drill contractors and several environmental people. that I know in the industry, and those are becoming more and more common to use. It's not new technology. It's a fairly common technology and growing in importance as exploration companies try to do a better job and take care of their cuttings and not making a big mess. And then finally, the only comment I have about the cleanup bill, everything we do up there is bonded with the state of Colorado, with the DRMS. We are motivated to get our bond money back, so we want to make sure that we clean things up and get the dollars back that we've put in place. The other reference point that I'll point out there is when I was working at Cripple Creek for nearly 20 years, our environmental bond with the state was $100 million to make sure that we did all the reclamation that we said we would. Don't think we're going to get to that point here. It's just a small exploration project, but companies are required to bond for their activities or they don't get their money back. Thank you.
So a question I guess I would have on we're talking max 20 a year, and is it DRMS that comes in and does the inspections on how those are closed out?
You mean on the drill holes?
On the drill holes, sorry.
Yes, yes. They have to come in, and the engineer has asked to come and accompany them as one of the conditions with Planning Commission.
So they also send a letter to the Conservation District, who has a chance to comment on it as well, on any reclamations that happen.
Okay. And I think, Angela, you said something earlier about, let's say they come in and they say hole number 20 wasn't finished or done properly, and then year 2, you only get 19. So I guess where I'm going with that is annually the state is putting that limiting number on you guys. Okay.
That is correct, and one of our obligations is to submit an annual report to the DRMS to tell them what we've reclaimed, what the coordinates are, where it's located, and provide the documentation from the driller who pumped the bentonite and the cement down that hole and signs off on that completed form.
And this is all done one hole at a time?
Correct.
From beginning to end?
Yeah.
And then you said it, process driving the equipment in and driving the equipment out probably only covers a 2-month period for 20 holes?
Well, yeah, to be clear there, we'll mob the equipment in. The drill has to come in, the pipes have to come in. We get the pads built if they need to be built. But that's it.
That's one trip in, one trip out, beginning and end?
Correct.
On that equipment?
Correct. Although the drillers will come in, you know, they'll have 12-hour shifts and they'll drive their pickups in, and the geologists will come visit the drill. But there's just a little bit heavier load at the end points of the program.
Gotcha.
Mr. Brown, would you talk a little bit more about the air quality? You run a diesel engine 24 hours a day. There is some emissions coming off of that.
Well, there is, but it's no different than road graders or pumps for water or things like that. And all of the equipment has filters on them to keep things clean. But yeah, there are no requirements from the state that we have to monitor the air or the dust. Again, we're doing everything we can to keep it down, and it's a very small program in the grand scheme of things. If we were a mine, it's a different story.
How many carbon emissions do you think that's going to? I'm just kidding.
I don't know the answer.
I don't even want to get into that topic.
Thank you.
If we're going to go down that path, I've got a list.
We need a lunch break if we're going to go down that path.
I better be quick then. Jim going at it again. And I'm just going to elaborate a little bit on a couple of things that Tim said. First, about on bonding. The whole philosophy that certainly the state of Colorado does, and certainly was true in Wyoming, was that you bond the estimated cost of complete remediation. That's why they had a $100 million. Cameco, the biggest uranium operator in Wyoming, has a $250 million bond. These are numbers that are mind-boggling. Incidentally, the oil industry has 250,000 statewide bonds. We won't get into that. In any event, the mining industry bonds the real cost, and it gets up every year based on inflation. You have to re-estimate it, and you need to crank up the amount of money that you've got in your bond that's cash. And so this is really a significant investment to do that.
Are those bonds by whole, or are they by acre, or how are they bonded?
No, they're bonded, it's bonded actually, the actual cost of doing the reclamation, the full reclamation process. And so, if you got a 1,000-foot hole, it costs $20,000 to plug it, it costs X to do the revegetation and so forth, and the road, and it's just a unit cost for various things that you have to reclaim.
So basically then per site, per pad.
Yeah, and the numbers are not calculated by us. It's not like we send them a suggestion, hey, how about this, 50 grand? The state does the bonding on the basis of formulas the state establishes, and they're pretty good. They consist pretty well with the kind of costs that we see during our reclamation exercises. And so it's not that we ask you to trust us on those numbers. We're not asking you to. We're asking you to trust the state. And incidentally, you want to be copied on the report, the annual report? We can send you a copy of your whole idea about integrating, making sure that we're actively engaging with you and you with DRMS to the extent that you can afford to and want to do that. That's great. We really believe in that kind of, it's not so much a team, but it is actively engaging so that you guys know what we're doing and how we're doing it. And so I wanted to just give you one little bit on the monitoring program. Black Range had 6 rigs, 50 people, and I don't know how much acreage. I mean, it was a big operation. It was a commercial scale operation. That is a big deal. We got 1 rig, you're gonna have 4 people, plus or minus people coming up and visiting, right? So they had a monitoring program for surface water and for groundwater, plus all the inspection of the ground surface and all of that. The groundwater was domestic wells, and that's exactly what we're doing. So if anybody who's got a domestic well in STB or within a reasonable distance, look like it would be affected, potentially affected, they can call us and we'd be glad to sample at our cost their domestic well. In addition, sampling along the creeks, upstream and downstream of the operation. That's exactly what Black Range did. So we're going to do the same thing. Now, they were covering thousands of acres. We're covering 700 acres. So the key thing here is we're covering that area. But after Black Range got through with their program and monitored for several years, that's when Fremont County's consultant reviewed all the data and said, no impacts from the drilling program. So we expect to see that same kind of result, but we're monitoring in any event. That's all. Okay. Questions?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Well, one, there was a question earlier, and you probably can't answer this because you're not a bee specialist, I'm sure. But you guys have talked to Parks and Wildlife about wildlife, and I'm sure there's concern about cattle, but has anything ever been addressed about bees? What if it does cause her bees to have problems and she loses all of her revenues from her beehives because of the well vibrations?
It's a question I can't answer. I can only begin to guess Department of Agriculture, but we just want to go back into basics. We're not talking about mining here. We're not talking about lots of truckloads of materials and so forth. What we're talking about is one small diesel engine on a rig and a slight increase in the amount of daily traffic that would be equivalent to somebody building a garage.
Thanks.
The only other comment I would have is, I understand the context of why you said it, but just for future reference for anybody listening, when you say the words "trust the state" to the 3 of us,
Okay, all right.
He's lost all
Would you like me
of
to
it.
withdraw that
Yeah.
statement?
Oh, it's in the record now.
I think that what we were really talking about is the state has regulations and it has guidance and we have statute. And we intend to, we commit to meeting all of those. We know what it's like to do that and to interact both with the regulators and the people who are in our community. And that's something that Tim and I have been doing for a long time.
Right. Understood. Thank you. Angela.
Lastly, just to clarify about DRMS, and a kind lady did bring up, there were 2 notice of intents to prospect. One was in 2021, and then the current one, 2023. 2021 was on the Taylor Boyer Ranch. It was for 60 holes, and then this one was done in 2023 on the Hanson Picnic Tree, the south portion, for 20. And when the ever-changing plan of OCAPI, as you've noticed, things change, they decided to change their focus from Taylor Boyer because we are not before you with the CUP on the Taylor Boyer. Instead, the CUP is on the Hanson. They submitted an amendment to the NOI for 2021 and reduced their holes to 20. So it was 60, it was reduced to 20, and the bond reduced accordingly. But bear in mind, nothing can be done there because there isn't a CUP on that ground. So the state holds the bond, the prospecting notice is in place, but the next step to do that would be come before you with the CUP, which hasn't been done because OCAPI chose to focus on the smaller 734 acres. So to that point, that was correct. To the point of trusting the state, as someone who's been in the industry of DRMS and DMG before it, it is a rigorous set of rules that are forever changing. And the implementation of a simple sentence over the last 18 months has changed beyond my ability to understand. But because they are aware of the concern about impacts and reclamation, they are becoming more and more rigorous and more demanding on what constitutes a good plan, a good reclamation, and the bonds are getting bigger all the time. To building on Black Range Minerals, lessons learned, implementing lessons learned, implementing techniques that they have learned. In addition, as we've said, Tim and Jim both in the industry for decades have colleagues in the industry, something going wrong. To your point, Commissioner McFall, about bees. They can reach out to other people in the industry, have you had this issue? Because they have the connections and they have the network of professionals. And of course, they would see if there is an issue or something to mitigate. But again, it is one engine running. This is not a major operation. And another issue is the continued outreach. They've set the standard to participate with the POA in South T-Bar with open board meetings and annual meetings, and they have been doing this, and they will continue to do that. And then, of course, everybody's contact information is up there. And that's what I have.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Any more questions? Okay. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, which we have not done yet.
We have 2. Yes, we have. You just. Did you want to stand if he has any more comments? Did you want to stand if he has any more comments? He probably does. All right.
Now we're just at any closing comments that we might have, if there's any additions that Mr. Victoria has. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll say what I said when I first started this meeting is land use issues are very important, sometimes very difficult. I think these public hearings are great. I know everybody can't make it to these public hearings that are either for or against. I realize that, whether it's timing, work, whatever the thing is. I appreciate everybody that did show up today on both sides, and the emails and phone calls that Dan received. We do take, or I do, take all of those into consideration, as well as the facts of what's going on with the application that we're looking at. And I know there's always concerns about what's going to happen when. Nobody knows those answers, or we wouldn't have that question. But just a lot of things processing in my head, trying to make a decision of which way I'm going to go here today, and what we need to do. I think we have contingencies and conditions already suggested by Mr. Victoria. I think there's some others that maybe we could add to that, and that's that yearly report should be automatic to you guys, because you need to do yearly CUP things anyway. But monitoring those folks as well, wells that ask that are in a reasonable location area around that. If this thing were to pass, I think there's just some other things to help the community maybe feel better about what's going on up there. It is just exploration, it's not mining, which is a complete different adventure. We'll call it an adventure, but I'll stop.
Sure, I have comments, and then I may have a motion if you're ready for that. First, I would like to say thank you all for your time and attention to this application. We have in front of us 330 pages, which is a lot of information, but we've also had time to review. We've had time to look at it, and I also appreciated the presentation that you all put together for us today. One of the things that I am convinced about is that this particular company does deal with best management practices. I think the fact that the Whetstone comments that came back, those comments came, as was pointed out previously, from Fremont County's own people. We were the ones who contracted with those particular folks and asked them to look at all of the data and to come up with the information. That's what we came back with, and that with no impacts from current exploration. I am convinced that the techniques of this type of drilling do continue to improve, and that this particular company is looking at those techniques. And I think wildlife is being protected. I think water is being protected. And having said all of that, Mr. Chair, I then would move to approve conditional use permit 21-001 Tallahassee Resources Exploration Project, with the contingency of permit of chemical toilets within 6 months after this approval, as well as conditions of the Fremont County engineer participating in any post-reclamation inspections conducted by DRMS and post-road and stream crossing damage inspections as described by the applicant, as well as the Fremont County Department of Transportation being notified of any changes that could impact the roadway for re-evaluation.
Okay. Did we get everything that was counted for, Mr. Victoria? Or do we have to do the
I would
papers?
note that on TUPs, the board, since it sits as the Board of Health, also includes the chemical toilet approval in the approval of the overriding permit, rather than having to have a separate proceeding for that.
Okay, I will amend the motion then to include the actual approval of those chemical toilets.
All right. Do you guys think it would be reasonable to ask at the start of a new campaign to get an updated site plan with the
new holes?
Yes.
All right, as well as updated site plan of new holes at the beginning of each campaign. Anything else?
One, I think for consistency, I believe I read that the Division of Wildlife, or Parks and Wildlife, whatever they're called now, recommended April 30th to November 1st, if I recall.
Through November, yeah.
Through November.
Through November.
30th, not the 1st, yeah.
Okay. Are we square?
I believe so.
I will second that motion. Most of you have been in the room the whole day, and we appreciate your patience and willingness to do that. We still have more business after this to conduct. Here for an earlier issue that we faced, and we don't take these things lightly, and we go through hundreds of pages of reports. We look at Planning Commission's analysis of this and the testimony there. We take into consideration the public comment as well, and meshing all that stuff together into a decision is not an easy thing. But again, it's not something we take lightly. Some of the other things that we take into consideration, is our own experience and knowledge of the area up there. I remember back when I was a kid, I vaguely remember the cypress exploration up there. There's a place up there we frequented and still do up there off of Tallahassee Road that belongs to the family. It has nothing to do with this project or even prior projects. It was just nearby. And apart from proceedings like this and other articles, there'd never be a knowledge of those things that have happened. There's talk of impact and what may or may not occur. From my perspective, I have to look at those things and take those possibilities into consideration, but I also can't ignore what I know to be true about how things have happened and how things currently are up there after all those holes have been drilled. I don't understand, the whole thing about why they need 20 more holes this year, or why 2,000 isn't enough, or 10,000 or 100,000, or I don't know. But we do have the plans in place, the mitigations, and I think for me the questions have been answered as far as allaying the concerns that folks have, at least allaying my concerns. And so with that, I will second it and leave it at that. Has been moved and seconded. Any further comments?
Nope.
With that, roll call.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
So, my vote, it's going to pass, no matter which way I vote. But as I read this application, do you have a little more to say, I guess? As I read this application and then hearing everything today, there are concerns, but I think there are concerns that we don't really know what's going to happen, which we don't know what's going to happen as soon as we walk out this door. But this application, Kevin kind of nailed it pretty good. It answers a lot of questions, and even in lieu of the concerns of the residents, and I completely understand, I'm going to have to say aye.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you all again for being here today and for your comments.
Lunch is on you.
Oh, what's that what he said?
We still have quite a few items on the agenda. If you could carry any conversations out to the hallway, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
And get the door closed. All right.
Boy, I guess I know how to empty a room. All right, we are still in public hearings. We have public hearings for the zone consolidation and rewrite. And I will open the public hearing at 1:01. Turn to Dan Victoria for our staff report for the, shall we just go A, B, and C, and we'll cover one at a time?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right, so
I'll
the
run
staff
through it.
report for the new formatting to zone districts.
All right, so I'm glad I brought a hard copy because my tablet's about to die. So what I have in front of you guys today, I'll start with the first portion of the rewrite, which is 3 different zone districts with 0 changes besides formatting. We're just giving it the same look as the rest of the regulations. So the airport zone, the low-density residential, and the manufactured home park. We, besides putting this in the new format of what the new zoning resolution is going to look like, we have changed nothing. So if anyone has any questions on that.
So other than no changes, what changes are there?
Yeah, it's got a new look.
Okay.
Which will really help. I mean, that is a great change.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's kind of what I've been telling folks as well, you know, in other meetings, that the reformatting is as big a deal as anything, just making it easier for the public to use.
Yeah, so the reformatting, it's got the same information and a shorter document that's easier to read.
Right.
So we're just trying to make things a little easier for everyone.
Easier to reference and find what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
And I remember 20-plus years ago, wading through all those and learning all the zone districts for my profession, and yeah.
Yeah, it'll help everyone in the community, and it also helps us. So we feel it's a win. The next part of this consolidation and rewrite would be what we're calling the minor changes. So that would include the business zone district, the industrial zone district, industrial park, planned unit developments, and rural highway business. So with this, we've done the same formatting, so everything matches. And we have just added some new uses in for each of the districts. Like for business, we've added in distillery, restaurants with or without a brewery, solar fields. In the past, I've explained how we've broken out contractors' yards between a 1 or a 2, depending on how intense of a contractor's yard it is. So in these, we've just added some new uses and kind of cleaned up what we had. If you want, I can go by each district and list the new uses in them,
or hit the highlights.
Okay, so industrial, again, contractor's yard 1 or 2.
Or re-hit the highlights.
And that's about it. Industrial park, let's see here. We've the contractor's yard 1 or 2, restaurant with or without brewery, solar fields. With the planned unit development, let me get to the major change with that is that we took the procedural requirements from the planned unit development section. So we took the procedural requirements and standards for approval and we moved them into a new chapter to address specifically the procedural requirements. So just kind of broke it out a little bit, made it a little bit easier to understand. And then rural highway business, we added, we have distillery, we have, again, restaurant with a brewery or without, we have that contractor's yard 1 or 2, and that's it for the minor changes.
So that, you mentioned distillery, that's discussions I know that we've had, kind of the donut hole in our regs where there just wasn't anything that it fit in. And we have, of course, we have wineries, we have, I don't know, what do you call them, cideries?
Cideries, I believe. Yep.
Well, I wanted to say it and then it sounded weird.
Yep.
But,
That's what they are.
And in breweries and these things. And so this is an important, I think, step as far as the distilleries go. We're surrounded by them. And we didn't have something in place for people that wanted to come in with a distillery.
Absolutely. So breweries, distilleries, solar fields. We've had a lot of inquiries about these things, and our regulations just didn't allow for them.
Solar was another really big one in many, many meetings that I have with a lot of the western states, and these solar fields becoming, and we had no regulations whatsoever on them. So I'd asked Dan that early on to start thinking about that, because we're going to run into that. And I think since then he's had a bunch of them, and we need to be able to regulate those to protect the properties next to them when they go in.
Right.
We actually have an applicant waiting for us to find a pathway for solar and get it approved to submit. They're already approved with other agencies to move forward with the solar field, but we're just kind of not there yet. So we're trying to get caught up to what the current needs are.
Are the current solar fields in the area, are they city?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So no solar fields in the county right now.
Okay, gotcha.
Don't allow it.
But we're going to have, and I don't know how much we'll say we'll have in it, but we're going to have them on federal land eventually in our county too, probably. And we need to have that say, so at least if we have some regulations that, and we are a cooperating agency on that. I had a meeting today that was canceled on that, but we need to have our ducks in a row so that when they're ready to fly, they're ready.
Okay.
Yep. And then last but not least, our current regulations, we obviously have low density residential, we have a medium density residential, and then we have a high density residential. The medium residential and the high density residential have very little differences. A couple different uses, some different lot density and like building heights and setbacks. There's not enough of a difference to have that medium and high two separate zone districts. It's kind of unnecessary, and for the sake of streamlining things, I'm proposing to consolidate the medium and high density zone district into a new high density zone district with the zone requirements of medium density, so we're not making anything non-conforming, and a consolidation of uses. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that is my entire pitch today.
All righty then.
That's all you got.
That's it.
Any questions for Mr. Victoria or comments?
I do have comments, Mr. Chair.
Please.
I again would like to just publicly thank Dan and your entire staff for all the work that you've been doing on this. This has been an incredibly heavy lift, and we're not done yet.
No,
I
we're
know
not.
there still is a lot more work to happen between now and next April. But taking a look at the difference between our old set of regulations and our new set of regulations that you're working on, there is no comparison. It says the same thing, but it says it finally in an understandable manner.
Yeah,
And so I just want, once again, to publicly thank you, and if you would pass that along to everyone who is helping you do this.
Absolutely. I'll make sure to do that. My staff has been amazing with this process. I guess with that, my ask today would be for this within a formal adoption date of, we've been using April 15th with the understanding that we're going to pitch a finalized product in March so we can adopt it all as one new set of regulations.
And to reemphasize, like we did on the last public hearing we had for this, that also gives us the opportunity to, in case we find other stuff that we need to adjust or fix in the meantime. So while adopting this does move us forward, it doesn't make us stand still where we're at.
There's always room for improvement.
Right.
Well put, I like that.
So, and just my comments, on the high density and medium density, very much akin to our ag district consolidations. Necessary, should have been done years ago, but once it's in place, it stays in place until a big thing like this. And so, again, that's a good move for us. Makes at least that one little bit that much easier for the end user to navigate. This is a public hearing, and so it is open for public comment. If there is anybody in the audience that has public comment on any of these items that Mr. Victoria has addressed in these zone changes or zone non-changes, such the case may be. Anyone? All right. Going once. Going twice. Sold. Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chair, I've got a motion if you're ready.
I'm ready.
I want to appreciate you guys as well, Dan, for the work that you've done on this, and it is confusing reading through our regulations.
They're terrible.
Now, and I do it not every day, but I do it a lot, and it's like, wow, and then I sometimes got to call and ask for help, so making it easier is going to be, or better, easier to read is going to be much easier. So with that, Mr. Chair, I move to approve it, and it's will be resolution number 34, I believe. With resolution number 34, the zone consolidation rewrites, which is the airport zone district, low density resident zone district, manufactured home park zone. Minor changes were to the business zone district, industrial zone, industrial park zone, planned unit development, rural highway business development, and then a zone consolidation for high density, creating a high density and a medium density.
And is this for adoption as of April 15th with a second look in March?
It is for approval right now and will be come back to us in April.
Adoption.
For adoption,
Yeah,
yep.
final adoption.
On April 15th, yes.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay. And that was number 34.
34.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And back to new business. Item number 2. Let me make sure I get the right agenda up on my screen here. I got an old one printed out in front of me. Yes, item number 2. I think that'll be resolution number 35.
Yes.
This is for the granting of an exemption from the subdivision regulations for a tract of land in Fremont County. For this, I believe I might be turning to Mr. Victoria again.
Let me see how I can explain this one. Gentleman wound up buying this parcel of land, and it wasn't until he applied for a well that he was informed that it was not eligible for a well because it did not appear to be legally created. This lot was created less than a year after the cutoff time of when subdivisions were required.
1973?
Yep, 1973, right? Yes.
So Bill 35.
Yep, so, yep, he immediately contacted the office, asked if we could wind up writing a letter to help him be exempt. With this, for as long as this lot's been in creation, it exceeds the lot requirements of that zone district. There are no real issues besides how it was created over, 50 years ago. It seemed excessive to make him go through a one-lot minor subdivision in order to fix the problem he just purchased unknowingly.
Right.
So that's why we have this request in front of you.
Okay. Any questions?
George.
No question, but comment.
Comment?
Again, I appreciate staff's hard work to actually work with the public in resolving issues rather than throwing up roadblocks. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where happy to find a solution, but also it's a good reminder for all of us that there are still rules in place. And we're not encouraging anybody to go out and try to cut off a small chunk of their land through an illegal subdivision. These are definitely extenuating circumstances.
I would just note that the topography is difficult for this property.
Yeah.
And there was one other thought, can't remember. But the topography is difficult. There's only a limited amount of space between the highway and the river where anything could be constructed, so.
Right. So definitely extenuating circumstances that gets us to where we're at today.
Oh, the other thing is the lot size is consistent with the zone district requirements. So it is conforming to the zone district as well.
Thank you for reminding us of
Right.
that.
Right, okay. Is there a motion?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve resolution number 35, granting an exemption from the subdivision regulations for this particular tract of land in Fremont County.
I think we should have the address, 19851 Highway 50, Cotopaxi.
19851 US Highway 50.
And I will second that.
Okay, has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
One more item on our agenda, requesting a request for the issuance of Colorado Beer and Wine License Renewal Application, like licensed tavern, Bernie Rivera, doing business as Bernie's Place, 1419 South 9th Street, Canyon City. And the request for the waiver of the late filing. For this, we turn to Brenda, is it you?
Sure.
Okay.
This application came in late. They paid the late fee, did not request a waiver of the late fee, submitted a note explaining the problem for the lateness, which is basically a health issue. And so it has to be approved. If the renewal is approved, it has to be with a waiver of the late filing. And so that's why it's on the agenda. Otherwise, it would have been an administrative approval. There's no issues with this particular establishment.
Okay. All right. Is there, I kind of jumped over the clerk. Would you like to?
Sure. Well, as county attorney has already mentioned, she's reviewed the application. The health department, sheriff's office, we finally got approval back from them as well. We recommend approval of waiving the late filing, but not the timing of the the late filing, but not the late fee, due to they were also late last year submitting their application, and they were warned then as well, if they were going to file late, they'd have to pay the fee.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
I have a motion if you're ready.
Motion, please.
I move to approve the Colorado Beer and Wine license renewal for, license for the Tavern Bernie's Rivera, doing business as Bernie's Place, 1419 South 9th Street, Canyon City, and approve the waiver for the late filing.
Second.
Has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Commissioner Grantham.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And with that, we have finally come to the end of our business, and we are adjourned.